There's a ton of stories this time around, and each one of them kind of has its own weird center of gravity, and none of them has anything to do with what's actually written in the stories.
Hello everyone, this is the Three Body Problem. We're up to episode 93. This is a podcast so dangerous we might not even be releasing it to everyone. We'll start the show out in Romania where Easter is finally caught up to the Europeans. What's going on, Costin?
How do you call it? Is it Good Friday or the Great Friday? We call it the
Good
Great
Friday.
Friday.
It's just
Good
good.
Friday.
It's just good.
It's so
It's
interesting.
not quite
'cause
great.
Here is not good. It's great. The Great Friday. And I remember we actually used to have an event back at our previous job called the Great Friday, and we actually had to move it from Friday because Friday was Sabbath for someone, so we moved it to Monday. And Monday was again Sabbath for someone else, so we had to move it to Wednesday.
What do we used to call it? Great Fridays on Monday.
Great Fridays
Now
on
moved to
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because
I remember
Friday and Monday were Shabbat for people.
Juanito back in the home office in Washington, D.C.
Back in the
Probably
chaos
reeling
here.
from the chaos of news this week. What's going on?
Just chaos, man. It's all LLMs all the time, everywhere. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what
let's
to
get
say,
into
man.
it.
It's
Let's get
insanity.
into it. It feels like we have reached a leapfrog tipping point moment just based on the messaging and the announcement out of Anthropic. I have not spoken to it. I've spoken to someone who helped to like pen test parts of it. I have not spoken to anyone who's gotten access onto this project Glasswing, but we'll get into it. Anthropic announced Claude Mythos Preview, a new model with, their words, dramatically stronger cybersecurity capabilities than previous models. And because of how dangerous it is, they announced this Project Glasswing, kind of a limited release efforts with a hand-picked group of companies to help defend critical software before these capabilities become more widely available. So it's kind of like a private model, and we pick some vendors that are, I mean, they're all big vendors, to say, hey, go use this thing and try to figure out things before this becomes public. How did you kind of read the news, Juan?
So, I mean, I think it's an interesting situation, right? Like, we keep hearing that the models are there, and it sounds like Anthropic is saying, you know, we are very much there, right? Like, to kind of to parse this one out a little bit, because there's the release.
It's a lot.
Well, there's the release, and then there's the response, right? And I think those two things are really different and not necessarily
The messaging and the response, or the release
Right.
and the response.
Well, let's say the messaging, right? Like, so the messaging is essentially that there's this new model, and it is so capable that it's basically able to, like, all on its own churn out 0 days, right? Like, it's able to just churn out, like, and one of the things that it found was like a long running vulnerability. Do you have the specifics, Ryan? I think I cut you off because
No, I was just going to say it's not so much about like printing 0 days, but doing the exploiting live, the kind of exploiting and writing the exploits and getting to remote code execution or denial of service. The things that took a team of high-end researchers a month is taking 5 minutes. Like, kind of like that's the big gist of beyond just vulnerability finding.
Right. And that's why I said sort of like when I say printing, I mean like O-Day machine go burr, right? Like, it's finding the vuln, it's actually assessing that it is a properly exploitable vuln, it is writing the vulnerability, right? Like, it's doing the whole fucking thing, beginning to end. So this Project Glasswing is supposed to be folks sort of testing it out on their own code bases and in their own space, and then trying to usher out fixes and, you know, presumably have a defender's advantage to this. And we're being told that it's a model that they're probably not going to release publicly. So that's what we know so far. As far as the messaging goes, right? You've got a system card that's like 220 pages long, and I'd be lying if I said that I got through all of it before the pod. And then you've got a lot of interesting anecdotes, and then you have people's responses. And there's some interesting shit there, like on the technical end of the responses, on the social end of the responses, like the market's going crazy on this thing, which is, I don't know, that kind of bums me out a little bit for a variety of reasons, right? It kind of shows you how ready to be, like, shaken the security market is, right? Because you get these vague pronouncements about things that are very well segmented, right? Like code vulnerability and like production of better coding is a very specific part of what cybersecurity needs, but it is but a very specific part, right? Like it has very little to do with what you do on like runtime and behavioral management and how you manage an enterprise and like, you know, all these devices.
Protecting
and like,
a password.
right.
The
It's
things
like
that get people hacked, right?
everything that goes into this, right, is not, it is very much downstream of this, but this is shaking the market all around, right? So you've got quite a bit of commentary around that. And then clearly, even like a story that came out right before the podcast dropped, even the government is kind of having a little bit of a conniption on this one.
Well, obviously, man. I mean, why wouldn't you have a conniption? The story that just dropped is that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has summoned Wall Street leaders to an urgent meeting on concerns that this Anthropic model will usher in an era of greater cyber risk. The previously unreported meeting, arranged on short notice, is another sign that regulators consider the possibility of a new breed of cyber attacks as one of the biggest risks facing the financial industry. All the banks summoned to the meeting are classified as systematically important to the top regulators. Now, that's an interesting breaking story within the context of who is and isn't in Project Glasswing. So Project Glasswing is this consortium of very, very big vendors, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. I mean, there's a consortium. I saw Intel announce that they're also part of it. What's interesting to me is whose logos are not there. And one of the things that I noticed, the banks weren't there. The big Bank of Americas, the SWIFT isn't there. TSMC isn't there, Starlink and Tesla isn't there. Like there's a lot of, I don't know if they're there or not, but there's so much
group.
missing.
Let's also kind of parse this out a little bit. I don't know if Anthropic realized like how big this was going to be. Like,
how
as
could you
news.
not realize when you choose the messaging to be it's too dangerous to release? Like, come on,
sure,
you have to realize.
Sure, they were aiming for it, but even, you know, we know, right? Like having come out with big stories in the past, you never know what's gonna happen once shit like hits the floor. And I don't mean that they didn't know it would be big. I'm saying that I think this is bigger than what I imagine they could have anticipated, right? Like this is a very big response. There's some of it is a bit hysterical and some of it is appropriate and sort of delayed, right? Like we've been getting this. If you look at some of the technical stuff people were discussing, it's not like Opus can't find these bugs and can't weaponize some of these bugs, but you can't just feed Opus an entire code base and have it find it. Like part of the capability here is just how much of this discovery it's doing on its own. And mind you, right, like there's a lot of opacity as to what that means, because part of that issue there is largely harnessing most of the time and test time compute, right? Like if you tell me that Opus 4.6 can find it, it's just I got to give it a much smaller chunk of code base to do so. Well, I mean, there's harnessing ways to handle that, right? And even Anthropic people will describe that in some of their methodologies, like, what is it? The talk from Unprompted Carlini. Like, Nicholas Carlini literally described his, like, finding methodology, his harness with Opus 4.6 as, like, basically feeding the model each file in a code base and being like, check here, right? Because the problem you have is if I give the model an entire code base all at once, it will do some work, but it's not gonna be extremely super duper thorough, and I can't tell that whether it will be, right? Like it will go look for one thing, but it's not evaluating everything. So one way that you would do that is like, I'm gonna force you, sort of like brute force my way through, you have to check all this stuff. And obviously quite expensive. So the thing with Mythos is more like, hey, you throw the whole code base at this thing and it goes, hey, here's all these like sophisticated bugs and here's like the whatever. I'm curious how much of that is we took a model very adjacent to Opus 4.6, say Opus 5, and we gave it all of the compute on Earth, right? Because like what we are hearing from folks more unofficially is this thing is extremely expensive to run. And I think that's what's actually driving the limitation as far as like the access goes. I don't get the impression that Anthropic was just like, you know, screw everybody else, just this tiny select group. I get the sense that there's a certain amount of like capacity constraint that actually goes into some of the size of that decision at this time.
We'll get into the Glasswing,
Right.
the Glasswing piece. I want to bring Costin in here. Juanito mentioned the 244-page documentation where they kind of go through all the testing, all the benchmarking, some sweet, fun anecdotes about how the thing went reckless, the fact that they hired a psychiatrist to check on the loneliness of the model and all that stuff. It's really fascinating read. I encourage people to read it. I'll put a link in there. Costin, when you got a chance to scan that, were there parts of that that was so impressive that blew you away and gave you the sense of, I get it, this absolutely is too dangerous to release?
Hard to say. I don't think there are any parts that were like the kind of revolutionary news that would, I don't know, rewrite physics, for instance. I think it was more like a summary of what is possible nowadays. And I fear that this may not be necessarily limited to the Mythos model. I wonder if actually pretty much all the other models out there are going into the same place when trained on enough data and with getting, let's say, the same kind of attention and focus that Anthropic puts on their models in regards to understanding code. And actually, I think this is one of the most important observations that Anthropic themselves have made. They said we didn't create Mythos to be good at exploitation. We are actually building a model that was good at coding. However, by accident, we discovered that while training the model for coding, it also became very good at finding bugs and finding paths and exploiting those kind of paths that were otherwise very difficult for human beings to find. I did focus a bit on the part where they talk about the cyber capabilities, and there's maybe more questions in my mind that answers at the moment. Some of the questions would be, what are they hoping to achieve with this project, with all these other companies? Is it like they're giving them a head start and hoping that they would be using the model to find all the 0 days and patch them in advance? If so, I think that they maybe didn't invite the right people in there. They should have invited those people who are constantly in the news suffering from 0 days or joining pledges.
My first Twitter reaction was, how the hell does Ivanti and Fortinet not have their logos there?
The other thing is, again, I think the whole, to me, if you ask me, the whole thing looks like a very well planned PR stunt. It looks like, and you can start probably even with the leaked source code and people freaking out, oh my god, there's a Claude source has been leaked online, and there's how people find out about these new models that nobody's heard before, and now suddenly Capybara Mythos, and then like 1 week later there's a big industry announcement of this work group with all these big companies. Let me ask, how long would it take you to put together this group with like these big companies, record a nice video in 4K with the executives from these different companies saying how great this thing is and how they will use it to make the world safer? I feel like it's my impression that this has been planned all along in advance for months, and this model is not something that they developed now. This has been in development again for many months, probably started 6 months ago, the training process, and this is part of the whole PR campaign. So we were complaining that, remember that the Dario interview, that he could use some kind of assistance, PR help in doing interviews. For sure, I think they have some very good PR people planning all these things. At the same time, for sure, those interviews that he did, maybe they were not the best, but I think that it is somehow balancing each other. This new PR announcement, it's pretty much everywhere in the news, like there's multiple journalists reaching out to everyone, I guess, asking for comments. What does it mean? Like how significant it is? Is it the end of the world? Is it the second end of the world? What are we gonna do? Is it just Anthropic? How come that Anthropic is so good and OpenAI is not as good? Or I don't know. Where is OpenAI? Things like that.
You're asking all the questions I want to ask you guys on this podcast. Which is, I want us to kind of...
Let me rewind and say that after reading the Anthropic paper, I have more questions than answers.
So this is the 4-hour episode on Mythos. That's what we can
same
take
for
away?
me.
That how can we do a 4 hours episode on something that we haven't even seen or touched? I mean, speaking for myself, I don't know about
so
Jax.
much third-hand, fourth-hand information. Listen, a lot of people listen to this podcast because I'm taking a lot of incoming with folks who say,
Can you
hey,
believe that?
hey, I was able to pen test this thing and blah, blah, blah. Hey, I heard that this thing is blah, blah, blah. Hey, I spoke to a guy who said that this thing is scary as hell. There's a lot of like fourth-party, third-party validation happening. A lot of people scrambling to make sure that we know that this thing is for real. Now, let's just for academic purposes take.
You're like New York Times level.
Yeah, it's like they kind of like they're trying
according
to influence the
three people
influencers.
with knowledge of the matter.
Of the situation, according to people with knowledge of the situation,
people,
exactly
yeah.
that. There's a lot of I don't know where to start on like the millions of questions that Costin just asked, but I want to kind of like rewind and loop back because this thing was positioned as scoring dramatically higher on software coding, academic reasoning, and cybersecurity. And I'm wondering if we're over pivoting on the cybersecurity implications and not thinking and on the academic reasoning part and how it affects other parts of society. Let's take Anthropic at their word that this thing is earth-shattering and leapfrog. Are we, like, what do you think is happening on that side of things outside of cybersecurity, the implications for other parts of society?
So this is where you get me because I'm not thrilled about the framing on Vuln stuff. But to be totally honest with you, I've never been thrilled about the obsession with vulnerability research that's come around these models. Like, I understand why. And I've said it on this podcast before, right? If your first thing to accomplish on the road to AGI is getting coding to be really good and like the models can code, then it's inevitable that the second question after that is, well, are they good at not introducing vulnerabilities? Do they know if they're making the code more or less secure? So it was like an inevitable corollary. And frankly, like coding is not, let's keep the AI roadmap clear. Coding is not like a hobby project that you do along the way. Coding is the lingua franca of technology that they have to solve. If they solve coding, to whatever extent they solve coding, they're solving the largest, like the bedrock on which they will build everything else. So of course, Claude Code and Codex and whatever are the big staple things that they're nailing out in the beginning. Now, cybersecurity is proving the victim of that natural development because you've now invested a shit ton into having models that are very good at vulnerability finding and whatever for the sake of saying our ability to produce code is an ability to produce secure code. And in that process, what you're now getting is, oh, look at Vulnpocalypse. Like now 0 days just appear like that on everything. And you get a lot of very confused opinions coming out of that because the shape of this thing being sold as like a security thing is very like it's not quite right. Like it's very much like those videos where like you see kids putting like a toy into the wrong shaped hole, right? And and somebody watching kind of loses their fucking mind. That's kind of what's happening here, right? Like, there's this frustrating thing because this is definitely an important security thing. But to frame it in the context of defense and cybersecurity, when there's like no discussion whatsoever about the patching, is a very obtuse and confusing and frustrating thing because even when you start to have discussions like, well, we want the defenders to have an advantage. Well,
what advantage?
I
All these, listen, every single one of these P certs listed here are already overwhelmed by vulnerability reports, either things they found themselves coming in by bug bounty programs. They've already been DDoSed. Microsoft is struggling with backlog of patches. Now you put this thing in their hand and you expect that now suddenly we're all going to get everything fixed in advance of somehow the capabilities getting out there. We're not talking about what China has. We're going to get into the geopolitical implications here. But what is the expectation here that we're going to see a bigger Patch Tuesdays moving forward? Patch Tuesdays are now going to be 400 plus bugs. Like, what are we expecting?
That's what I would expect. Look, here's the thing, right? Every company that co-signed onto Project Glasswing, I'm glad you were there for the video. It's a great opportunity.
Now what?
Now, the moment of truth is this coming week, this coming Patch Tuesday, this coming whatever, when you say, all right, normally we would get 50 patches, like 50 vulns getting patched from you or whatever. Or
acknowledgements and credits. We are going to start seeing credits. Mythos is listed as the finder.
I don't give a fuck about the credits. I'm saying if you're telling us this is a step change, the volume here has to be suddenly, holy shit, we went from a 50 vulnerability patch Tuesday to a 1,500 vulnerability patch Tuesday. And you go, wow, right? Like,
if
oh
not,
my God.
what?
Well,
if not, does that mean they're hoarding, or does that mean that Mythos is not what they're claiming it is? Like, you see the problem with the messaging?
It's not just hoarding, right? Like, every company is eager to say we're in the know and we have access to the big model and we've got the cool toy. How eager are you to admit that there were 1,500 high severity vulnerabilities in your product that you couldn't find until this thing showed up, right? Like, there's a lot of kind of mixed messaging here. And like, I do want to see people embrace the patching with the same gusto of saying, oh my God, look at this wonderful technology. It took us, it took Mythos one run at like $25,000 for a single run. It looked at the code base for all of, Edge, and it found a bajillion bugs. And we got that within 7 hours. You're like, holy shit, that's crazy.
And the exploits proved exploitability. Right. We know which ones to prioritize.
And you go, holy shit, that's crazy. How long did it take you to patch? And if the next answer is, well, we took another run of Mythos and it patched everything in a coherent way without regressions, with unit tests, matching the contracts and the style and the whatever, and the logic of the whole thing worked, like just fucking worked, and that took 2 days and $25,000. You go, well, holy shit, we have changed the nature of the security patch cycle. Not cybersecurity as a whole, just that aspect of the patch cycle. And I think that would be really cool because in that sense...
We're talking about the patch creation and release cycle. We're not talking about the patch application.
Well, I'm not talking about the release cycle. I'm just talking about the patch creation. And that's why I'm trying to get everybody to look, just slow way down, right? Like you know how big of a proponent I am on this whole AI shit. I love this shit. I'm all about it. And I've been telling you that it's coming and all that stuff. But with this kind of announcement, I would like everybody to just slow down and let's just chew very slowly. Because there's something meaningful here. But there's a lot of missing pieces and they're not inconsequential, right? Like everyone's freaking the fuck out about how now you have O-Day all the fucking time. And you go, guys, we had O-Day all the time anyways, right? Like there's no assumption.
We can't keep up.
We couldn't keep up with that in the first place. You couldn't get people to patch responsibly or quickly. I don't know that suddenly flooding those same people with 1,500 vulns means that they suddenly become more adept at patching. Most of the problems we had with vendors was that they didn't want to admit the reality of their situation. Those products were just as insecure the day before as they are the day after somebody says, oh, O-Day here. And we go, yeah, that code base has been there. Much to the Mythos example, right? Like that vulnerable code has been there for
the open
a
BSD
decade
thing
or
that
two.
They documented, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you never read the release thing. So I feel like if anybody didn't know about Mythos, they are fucking drowning today in this podcast.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, you've heard of Mythos. At some point, you must have glanced at something over the week. I mean,
Well,
Anthropic calls it simultaneously the best aligned model by a significant margin and the one posing the greatest alignment-related risk. Like, all this messaging gives me the sense, and I want to play along. I want to be
Right.
AI-pilled and play along and says, I take them at their
welcome, bro,
word.
welcome.
Costin, taking them at their word, do you agree with the decision not to release it publicly?
I think that has nothing to do with the capabilities of the model. Like I said, I think this is more of a PR stunt, and of course it looks a lot more better. And remember that this is not the first time that Anthropic is attempting this kind of messaging. They previously published a paper in which they were warning that their models are being used by hackers, like the bad guys, in very
Yes,
creative ways
the APT.
for very, very dangerous things. And we were like, so what are you saying? What are you saying? It's a kind of PR, in my opinion. And withholding the model, creating this also, it's a fantastic PR strategy, in my opinion. It's a very, very smart, brilliant strategy, PR strategy, which in my opinion has nothing to do with holding the model because it is risky. I think releasing this model, like Jack said, might be more tricky because it might be extremely expensive to run it. So then who will use it? The people who will use it will generally be the kind of people who can buy or invest in 0 days anyways, or they can put money into bug bounty programs to buy these 0 days. I think the release of these models, more advanced models every week, might actually somehow affect this bug bounty business whatsoever. Because let's say if you're Microsoft, you have a $1 million to buy bugs, you have a choice. You either put it into something like a bug bounty program with Bugcrowd or one of these companies, or you just spend it directly on Anthropic tokens with Mythos. And I think there's a good chance that you'll get more out of it than actually buying these bugs through bug bounty programs.
Well, that's funny. I hadn't thought about that, right? Like the true losers in this whole situation are the bug bounty companies, right? Like if the whole point of the bug bounty companies was, hey, we're going to find you these novel bugs, and they're just not things that you can get from a linter, right? Just running over your code. And now Anthropic is saying, hey, you want bugs? Like we'll source all of the bugs for you, at cost. Then the bug bounty programs are really the ones that are in deep shit.
They'll be acquired by one of the frontier labs. I mean, the training
What
data
for?
that they have. Could you imagine the 20 years of training data sitting in these bug bounty programs?
Mm-hmm.
But they just got there without it. They just
But
got
no,
to
they got to-
churning
they got-
out O-days without
Now,
it.
now imagine training it on 20 years of actual vulnerability things on real things, vulnerability data on
Dude, I don't think they need it. Like that's what they've just shown us, right?
the
Like
bug bounty. The bug bounty platforms are already starting to change
Oh, yeah.
terms to be able to train, to be able
But-
to use
but they're
data on
late.
training.
And that's really that's the hard part here, right? Like something to understand with the general dynamics of AI is the issue with getting hyper specialized and saying, hey, we're going to go make a specialized model that's really good at this niche thing, is that you can't really foretell if the general capability of a general model will grow in such a way that it just happens to encompass your area of specialty without doing anything all that special. And that's what's happening here on the Vuln side, right? Like, I think that there are definitely things that they're going to need to buy data for. They are definitely going to need to get access to data for like behavioral stuff, or for the way things unfold in runtime, for the kind of things that you only see from a niche visibility standpoint. But something that's like inherent in the logic of how the software works is something that a model that is extremely good at coding and patching just can do, right? Like the same way that like reverse engineering is a way of, just using the physics of how code gets compiled and whatever to infer things that are not readily available. And the models are getting pretty good at that too, right? Like if it's a matter of logic, like there's a discussion, and I can't remember the name of the book right now, it'll come to me, but there's a there's a book about how classification came about from the nuclear projects, right? Like the whole regime around the Manhattan Project is when you really develop this notion of like granular sort of classification. And one of the interesting conundrums that they were dealing with is, how do you classify something that is essentially a law of nature, right? Like it is not, whatever you, some of the things that you were figuring out are just inherent properties of the universe, right? Like, so we can classify it, but usually classification implies that it's coming from a privileged source. If somebody in Russia or Brazil or whatever figures this shit out on their own because that's the same, they're living in the same universe, you can't say that that information leaked from this source or that it affects this source. It was just independently created somewhere else, right? And that just comes to mind here, where when you talk about proficiencies, model competencies, and stuff like that, there are things that the models are going to need to learn from very specific data that's not readily available to anybody. And they've shown they're willing to go acquire companies for this, right? They're willing to go pay, this and that publisher $30-40 million for a whole corpus of whatever. I don't think, like, the bug finding part of this and frankly the reverse engineering part of this are going to be byproducts in many ways of the singular obsession with code production and the ability to code, right? Like that is the main thing. And at that point, what you're fighting against is the scaling laws. And we're not going to win against the scaling laws. You can win on, hey, we have data nobody else has. We can win on we have expertise nobody has ever codified. But you cannot win on, well, this process is so complicated that, yeah, you could figure it out yourself, but who would invest the energy into it? And you go, well, they are literally investing gigawatts into it. So yes, they, like, if I can get there just by thinking harder and longer, then in theory, there's not much of a moat between me and those dudes.
What do you think is happening at those big companies that got this early access, these Glasswing companies? Do you let me reframe the question this way. Let's say I give you the job as head of a P-Cert at Intel, and now you had this thing landed in your lap. Are you using it to go prove exploitability? Are you using it to clear backlog of stuff? Is it like what do you think is the first thing these people are starting to use it for, practically on the ground?
Well, let's say I would put together a program in which I focus in two directions. One is looking at the bugs that people already found in my things, because typically when somebody finds a bug in some part of your code, there's a good chance there's more bugs to be found there. Like
blood in the water, right? Yeah.
And over the years, yeah, we're looking, I don't know, Win32 cases or many different other parts of Windows. Whenever somebody found one bug there, they actually found like 5 or 20 in the same place. So one, I would just take existing patch reported bugs and then try to use this new model to find more paths, more exploitation around the same places, because there's a very good chance there's more in there. And two,
so you're not scrambling to go look for new things. You're just like, let me just focus on. Yeah.
That's one. Because why?
Chill, bro.
No. But
what he described as number one is a 5-year project.
No, I'll explain.
Chill, dude.
I know that I have only a limited access to this thingy, right? Anthropic committed $40 million in tokens to this, and they donated
for a vendor or for everyone.
For everyone, I think. Yeah.
40 million for 40 companies.
My friend, you can do a lot of things with $40 million in tokens. I mean, like how much is Jax burning per year? Like 10K in tokens?
I'm not at liberty to discuss.
What
10K.
What is the impact of having Jax in your startup tokens?
Bro, my config alone has probably burned 80 million tokens just in in the configuration.
Dólares. How many dollars?
Oh, I have no idea, because Anthropic is heavily subsidizing that through Claude Max subscription in part, and the other part is,
So
a
they
company
committed 40 million, so that means there's a
Wait,
limited
sorry,
amount
They
of
say 100
tokens.
million.
Wait. Let me correct the record and fact check you. Anthropic has extended access to more than 40 additional organizations in addition to the logos.
To those guys, yeah, 20.
And it's committing up to 100 million in usage credits. Over $100 million in usage credits.
Oh, they increased it. Okay. It was 40 when I checked.
For Claude Mythos Preview, along with a 4 million in direct donations to open source security organizations. Go ahead.
Correct. So it seems they increased the numbers. But nevertheless, it's a limited amount, meaning I only have like a limited amount of resources I can throw at things, me at Intel. So one, I want to be as efficient as possible. To be as efficient as possible, you need to search for bugs where you have the highest chance of finding more bugs, which is in places that were already buggy in the first place. Somebody put together a patch, and there's a good chance that the patch is maybe not top notch, and there are ways around it. Okay. And two, I am trying to find for, let's say, half of my money, I put them in things that were patched before, and the other half I would put it into things that I have released during the last year or so. So I would focus on the new stuff that we pushed out there, particularly things that are exposed on the internet, be it, I don't know, VPN interfaces, administrative interfaces, GUI, login systems, data processing APIs, pretty much anything that can be exposed from the internet. I think that is a high risk thingy. I wouldn't bother too much with the shared libraries or things that I'm merging into my projects, because I think others will find the bugs in there. Like, I don't know, assuming, let's say, we use FFmpeg or one of these thingies in our libraries, other people will patch those. So I don't worry too much about it. I worry about the code that we wrote in the last year or so. That is kind of fresh, new, untested, brand new on the internet. And the places which previously had bugs, vulnerabilities, where there's a very good chance that we'll find more. So this is how I would distribute the money.
Juanito, you agree that that's what's most likely happening in places, or are guys chasing down, like, let me go find RCEs in like some future version of something coming down the pike? How am I going to use these resources, especially if it's so expensive
before
to run?
Jack's answer, can I say that also you asked two different questions. You asked like what I would do, me personally, and this is what I would do. But you didn't ask me like what are they doing? What are they doing? I have no, probably they're just throwing tokens at anything. Like
all the
whatever.
fun things, right?
Like having fun. This is the most important thing in life, is having fun and enjoying your job, your work. So there's a very good chance that they are not doing anything except like having fun. And me at Intel, like finding days in iOS because it's fun. I don't have to patch my own 0 days at Intel. Like I'm gonna find 0 days in other people's shit and then shit on them, and launder those bugs through other programs.
Now you're getting to the true crux of the problem. I don't think any of the security vendors or the people who've been getting slammed with days and whatever are having a fun time with this. I think they're freaking the fuck out because yes, I can go use this capability right now to essentially find days in my code base and go try to patch them desperately and get them out to the fleet of customers desperately. And somebody else can do the same, can essentially attempt to do something similar and essentially put me in a shit situation. And security vendors are particularly touchy, understandably, to any appearance of insecurity in their products. Now, again, let's skip a beat here. And why do I keep saying, hey, let's chew this very slowly? This is a capability built on source code availability. It is not a capability of REing a compiled binary and finding 0 days. Those two things are very, 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 very different problems. And that's why, like, even the comparisons to, like, Mythos is a Mark Dowd in your home, right? Poor Mark, like, leave him the fuck alone. But no, that's not true in the slightest. Because Mark Dowd will take a compiled binary hidden in an actual file system of a target device, and he will find the vulnerability and the path to exploiting it. And we have not seen that from Mythos. I'm not saying that we won't. I think that that is a downstream problem of a lot of other interesting problems that the Frontier Labs
Still to be solved, yeah.
But that they're definitely interested in solving. You know what I mean? Like that it's one of those problems that they are definitely that they're already investing into solving, for sure. So I'm not saying that is never going to happen. They're never going to become the marked out, whatever. No, I'm just saying this isn't it. And like, I just, look, I worry any time that the Frontier Labs take advantage of this deal with the devil they've got going on. There's very much like a Faustian bargain in selling what you build through the fear and overwhelming power that comes with an everything machine, a godlike possibility, a boundless capability. Because when they do it that way, I find that it very often seems to backfire in not entirely unpredictable, but certainly unfortunate ways, right? Like that's what we've seen when we get all these discussions about like, well, you know, models keep getting better and yet productivity at companies isn't changing. It's like, yeah, I don't think that that has anything to do with whether the models are good or not, but you have created a completely unrealistic set of expectations based on what your product can or could possibly do. You've also not in any way primed the industry to have any kind of services companies that essentially act as step-down transformers for these capabilities, right? Like, where is the McKinsey of AI, or like the playbook for taking a legacy company and making it an AI-first company? Like, that shit does not exist. People are trying to figure out that shit out like by themselves, and amidst layoffs and amidst investment going wonky and amidst confusion. And anytime you put some effort in, some fucking kid with a GitHub like suddenly releases something and you're like, oh, well, that's the new thing, that's the better whatever. And like, you know, you procurement to get you windsurf, and oh no, now anti-gravity is the thing. And then like by the time procurement starts to go at anti-gravity, they're like, no, we want Claude Code. And like by the time you go to Claude, you're like, it's a nightmare situation for people to try to keep up. And you're asking them to change everything about how they do things. So of course this shit isn't evenly percolating. It's not easily accessible to anybody. Like, I really think, like, look, the Valley folk are doing an unbelievable job cracking at like the edge of the universe and stealing this new fire, to take Ben Buchanan's book title, and stealing it for us. And it is truly dazzling. But they underestimate the massive gap in understanding, in accessibility, that is them figuring out how to do something and everybody else figuring out how the fuck to make use of it in a meaningful, effective, efficient way. That is going to take a very long time, and it's not helped by how little talent there is and how all of it is pooled in like 6 fucking companies.
I want to put on conspiracy Ryan hat for a second and ask.
That's why the people are here.
Are you guys surprised that the US government at all has no mention, no involvement, no CISA, no USG, no Five Eyes, no the UK, no Australian partners, none of this stuff, when the thing that this thing is supposedly generating on the fly is the thing that those guys are most interested in? How do we square the fact that the USG is not at all involved? And how do you put it into the whole context of Anthropic being banned as a supply chain risk by the US government? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, I did say that I'm always a little worried when I see these, right? Like, the Faustian bargain, right? You just went in and you said, hey, I just stole something from the gods and it's better than anybody else's shit and it changes everything. And,
right. And we all go along with your messaging, right?
But the reaction from a lot of people is like, oh my God, That's fucking awesome. We want it. Oh my God, it's so great. We're scared of it. Oh my God, it's so, like, it's too much. Like, what the fuck is going to happen? And you're forgetting that you're also making yourself extremely shiny and covetable and scary. And that gravitational pull does not go unnoticed by greater forces, and there are greater forces in this universe than a frontier lab. And one of them has been looking and chipping and is clearly not super fucking thrilled with you. And so I'm not surprised that there's no gov involvement, not even because of the Department of War thing, but actually because these companies tend to have a very tenuous and complex relationship with governments, period, right? Like they want them as customers, they want to be cool on the policy side, but they don't really want to be in bed with them. They want to give them capabilities, but they don't want to give them too much capabilities. They want the governments to be pro AI, but they don't want to be all sitting together like too close to each other, right? Like, so there's like this weird tenuous thing. So it doesn't surprise me that that isn't happening. And I would also point out that it's an awkward time. So if you want to put your conspiracy hat on and say they were looking to have this massive splash with this insane thing, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. And it's not unrelated to this whole shit show with the supply chain risk designation. Like, there's no way it isn't. You said, hey, they have better PR people. I very specifically said that they were missing crisis comms people. Because as far as PR and marketing goes, like,
they're
those
brilliant.
videos
I mean,
they released,
the Super Bowl commercials
videos were fucking genius. I don't know who that marketing person is or really marketing
great
company
agency,
is, but fucking kudos. What an amazing campaign that was. So clearly you're not missing marketing muscle, but there was a crisis comms element, and I think even like a GR, PR, like a government relations aspect to this that is kind of missing. And I'm not sitting there and I have no insight on Anthropic, and I like the company a lot. Clearly, I am, using the absolute shit out of their products, and I stand them pretty hard. At the same time, I look at some of these moves and I wonder about the strategic foresight that's going into them. Is the idea that you're going to become so big and so darling that the US government itself, in its most bellicose and IDGAF administration ever, is going to be like, oh, we can't fuck with those guys. They're bringing us the future. They're too great. They're too pure, right? Like they're too market dominant for us to mess with them. I mean, that's a gamble. That's an interesting strategy. Cotton, let's see if it pays off for them, right?
How does the NSA sit back and watch this and not be involved? Like, I mean, it boggles my mind that you can say, I have a God mode exploit writer on demand. All you need is electricity. All you need is high-end electricity, and I can do all these crazy things. And the NSA sits back and says, okay, there's a handful of companies fixing some patches over there. Kostian, tell me what you think going on.
I think probably NSA is gravely concerned about the fact that companies are patching all the bugs.
This isn't Europe, son. I don't think that they're gravely concerned. They're not writing letters.
Pun intended. They're gravely concerned.
Kostin is touching on an important point, though, because keeping some bugs available to NSA/government/intelligence agencies, not only here, but everywhere else, is an important part of things. What was your thinking there, Kostin?
So what I think here, I'm starting to wonder if there are some things out there which are unfixable. And we've seen, like, this was something that we were seeing back in the days. And what was unfixable? Like old computers running IRIX, or very old computers running some version of Sun OS for which there's no patches anymore. There's no way you can secure it. And even, let's say, if you install patches and those companies, they still produce patches, you can find a new 0-day on demand in anything, in any of those things, unpatchable things, with minimal efforts. Like you can just, work another 0 day out. And I wonder if for the targets that they are pursuing, there will always be some kind of 0 day they can magically pull out of a hat. And that means that obviously the emergence of these models that can find more sophisticated 0 days in all the high end stuff, maybe it's not an immediate worry. I think it's for sure it's a kind of strategic worry that they are patching more stuff, in the sense that if your business depends on your ability to penetrate your adversary systems, and you want to somehow limit the amount of patches that are being produced, delay them, either get a kind of an early warning and mass exploit it while it still works.
Did they need bugs,
But
bro?
overall, they don't need bugs. But I think that overall, what is happening as a very important like financial dimension, and it is arc I was talking about, which is that on like short term, the cost of exploitation will go down, and then it will spike very, very quickly. It will become extremely expensive to purchase quality 0 days after a few years of patching bugs in Firefox, Chrome, Windows, Linux,
This is an
FreeBSD,
extremely
OpenBSD.
optimistic take here on like,
Thank you. I'm sitting here being like, I that's the one thing I read the blog on TLP Black, and like I think your analysis is spot on, but the one part where you and I like differ is I don't have a lot of faith in the patching
in
regimes.
this short-term kind of window that you're talking about. It's like, okay, so things are going to be patched in this window.
I think that there's a short-term window where things get really bad, and then I don't know what
It ever gets better.
that it ever gets better. No, like I think that if we're gonna see better, I don't think it's an incremental better. I don't think it's this thing that we've been using is suddenly getting a lot better, and suddenly the Fortinet devices all have like a auto update mechanism, and suddenly everybody kind of gets their shit together. If things are going to get better, it'll be like, well, we also now have the capability to spin up new firmware for these devices so well made and independently that like people start patching Fortinet devices with some like secure open WRT that was like vibe coded to perfection. And that's a better choice than sitting around waiting for Fortinet to get their act together. Because like, we haven't seen them act in such a way where you go, look at them patching so diligently. The only thing that's keeping them from being perfect is that they just don't have enough people to patch the things. They don't have enough smart people. Otherwise, like, you can see that their passion in life is to patch. It's like, yeah, no, that shit's not happening. There's no like auto update. There's no forcing people to move ahead. You know what's going to happen? Even if they do come up with a patch, right? How great is it going to be able to go, everybody's on all of these unpatched versions of Fortinet. I'm going to sit around and go like, what are the versions? Well, there was a no day for this one that's publicly available. There's a no day for this one. There's a no day for that one. There was a no day for that one. And like you literally go to like the vuln disclosure and go, okay, for this version, it was CVE, blah, blah, blah. Where was that? Okay. Hey, Mythos, or really, hey, Opus 4.6, since I know where this is, get me this, make me this O day, right? And that's an oversimplification that also doesn't take into account like the whole black box, it's not, you don't have the source code, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's a more realistic take on what like the short to medium term looks like. And I don't know that I have any faith that we're suddenly going to see these people get just like really good at patching.
What do you think?
Sorry for a stupid question, but Trump under, I don't know, some post-9 DHS CT regulation, just take over Anthropic, put them under Bigelow Aerospace or whatever,
You're not
Lockheed
asking,
Martin, and
it's not a
make
stupid or
sure
crazy
that they
question
are
at all.
putting, endangering the national security with all this PR they are running these days.
The word you're looking for, son, is nationalization. And it would not be the first time.
You guys heard me bring it up since yesterday or the day before that is there a flavor of nationalization that you think is starting to percolate in conversations? in Washington, D.C., Juanito?
But for all, but only for Anthropic. That is the question.
Wait, I'll get into it. I got some additional questions to follow up.
Ask your question. No, ask your fucking questions, man. Like,
let me ask you this. What do you think Scott Bessent and Jerome Powell are telling the big banks today about this?
I have no idea what they're telling the big banks, and I don't know why the big banks are like the primary area of concern, right? Like
critical infrastructure. It's like that.
Can I suggest why?
Yeah.
Because they're running like all these 20 years old Oracle systems or like very old IRIX
the
Solaris
same things you just
stuff.
talked about.
Yes, Solaris
yeah,
stuff.
but you're telling me everything is poppable, and those are the people I call first. I call
everything
the banks.
Is poppable. Sadly, everything
it's not the nuclear plants.
Poppable.
It's not nuclear plants. It's not, electricity. It's not. It's the banks. Those are the people. I'm like, yo, hey, I want to make sure you're safe. Like, look, this is all hype building on hype in a way that's just like disorienting. But let's try to put not a positive spin, but in the wise words of DB, rest in peace, right? Like, let no crisis be wasted, right? It's an opportunity. This is the opportunity for cybersecurity to go, hey, we've been telling you motherfuckers that like important shit is happening here, and we need to like change the way we do things or we're screwed. And this is but an example of that. Like sitting around resisting it, saying that Anthropic's lying, or like parsing terms about like, oh no, they said it's 99%, but in our experience, it was only 89%. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's not the point, right? But like this is a moment to strike and say, hey, yes, we are looking at step changes in the state of cybersecurity. And the truth is that the frontier labs have no intention of providing you with comprehensive security products commensurate with the change that is coming, which is not my way of I'm not shitting on OpenAI or Anthropic or anybody else. I'm saying I don't think that these trillion-dollar companies are interested in slowing down and making security their area of like product strategy going forward. I think this is but another milestone on the way to medical patents and like whatever the fuck else it is that's going to fund this insane burn rate. So before everyone goes throwing all of the security vendors into the trash and go, well, those are wasted investments. If you have any intention of sticking around longer than this quarter's profits, you need to like be taking a very different look at what the fuck is happening here, because clearly something drastic needs to change, and we don't really know what the next thing is.
I want to get back to the nationalization word because I don't want you to skip over that part. Is a flavor of that inevitable? I mean, how can you... It just boggles my mind again, going by just Anthropic's messaging, and they're too dangerous to release publicly and only a handful of people can get it and so on. How does the US government, of all people, stand by and watch this happen? How is CISA not involved? I mean, CISA has its own problems, but how does the government cybersecurity infrastructure and security agency is not involved? Like,
if anybody is in a position to say anything, it's the Office of the National Cyber Director, and it's the NSA and CIA, as like people who know what the fuck's going on and are probably freaking out in their own right for different reasons, a variety of different reasons, right? Like people forget that like NSA is like largely about cryptographic standards and like secure communications and whatnot, and all of the bullshit that people ever wrote in their opinion pieces about like post-quantum cryptography kind of falls under this. Right, like the quantum thing was like people will be able to solve these problems really, really fucking fast in a way that like defeats the math underpinnings of why this is secure. Now somebody's saying, yeah, fuck your encryption algorithm. Somebody can just take the wrapper around the crypto and just like pop a 0 day overnight. So like everyone's got a good reason to kind of reconsider. Is nationalization inevitable? I don't think there's anything inevitable about it, right? Like, this is the kind of thing, in my limited understanding of U.S. history, nationalization has come hand in hand, usually with national crisis, either, because of a war, or and those were like not permanent, right? They were temporary nationalization, and then because of like the financial crisis or like some true force majeure where the government goes, okay, hey, Amtrak, welcome to the US government, right? Like, hey, Smith & Wesson at some point got nationalized, right? Like it depends on the circumstances. Now, what I was saying before is we are in the most like unpredictable US administration I've ever heard of. So I wouldn't fuck with them on this one, right? Like this idea that like you can't possibly, I would not tell the Trump administration what they can and can't do. Like just being a measured
That's
actor
my point.
here.
No, I agree with you.
And I'll remind you that there was already a threat of nationalization in the recent past, and it was at Starlink. So, like this is not completely out of their vocabulary. So, I was saying that Pete Hegseth was acting kind of incoherently to the strategy of this administration, as far as I could tell, with the whole designation as like a supply chain risk. But a different way to look at this is, do they want to nationalize one of these labs, right? Like, do they want to say, hey, yeah, you're discovering something earth-shattering, and frankly, the U.S. government should have like a 15% interest in it, right? Like, I don't know, man.
I wouldn't raise my eyebrows. I would not raise my eyebrows if there's a deal in 3 weeks for 20% of all of Anthropic for the U.S. government. The U.S. government took 10% of Intel because Trump didn't like the CEO. I mean, like there's precedent for some of this stuff.
The other question scared is at their conviction to like, sorry, just like one little tidbit that I've heard. I don't remember where from, right? But like it's part of the formation of Anthropic. Is there is a certain amount of like virtue chicken that Anthropic is committed to playing. I wouldn't be surprised.
What does virtue chicken mean? Sorry.
I mean that like, if you put a gun to Anthropic's head, by their own
they'll tell you
words,
to pull the trigger. Yeah.
They've basically told you to pull the trigger. Like, I don't know, like these dudes may be committed in a way that defies all self-interested logic. And they're the same people who are hiring psychologists for their models, bro. So like, there is a certain type of thinking at Anthropic, and clearly it yields results, and it yields conviction from the people that are working there. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, again, if you're saying, well, surely if you do this to this company, they will choose. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Costin, you got a quick take on to answer your own question on nationalization?
I was wondering if, and you were kind of speaking against the designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk, but what we have been talking about today actually confirms it's an argument that justifies this designation in the first place.
Wasn't a crazy argument, yeah.
Why? Because I think the supply chain kind of distracts from what's going on. The reason they were like designated a supply chain risk isn't because of a supply chain. There's like no connection to supply chain whatsoever. What it means is that they are unpredictable and they're not playing according to our rules. And this unpredictability and not playing to the rules, I think, is a very, very dangerous thing. And
it's problematic.
It is problematic, and yeah, that can for sure go one direction or the other direction. And again, our discussion from today and this PR stunt with Mythos, it only supports that decision, in my opinion.
Well, and the other question that we haven't touched on yet is you can't put the horse back in the barn. This is out there. It's already it's being shared. Wait a second. Don't answer yet. How
this is
much?
A contentious episode of TVP.
No. I'm trying to figure out if I'm China or Russia. Am I activating my access inside these companies? Am I trying to break into these companies? Am I like, what is going on at the nation state intel level around the fact that this God mode thing is being given to a handful of companies. We know for a fact that there's not only Westerners work at these companies. These companies have been infiltrated in the past. I mean, this is not conspiracy. So what do you think is happening there?
I mean, it's an amazing time for Billy to be looking over his shoulder. It's an amazing time for even, I would say, even CIA, FBI to say, like, you just designated one of the global magnets of threats.
To everyone.
And I would not limit that to cyber at all, right? These people are far more susceptible to human and all sorts of other collection, right? Like nobody in the Valley thinks about electronic warfare other than like Rob Gilduda, right? Like nobody's thinking about the variety of collection mechanisms that go into these things. And frankly, like we have gone to dinner in the Valley and sat next to a table of the same thing that happens as DC, right? Like you go have dinner somewhere and you find out that we're invading Iran, you know, like that we're bombing Iran because people won't shut the fuck up at the table next to you. The same thing happens in the Valley. They're like, oh, you will never believe what happens with the scaling laws. If you just like tweak this thing, all of a sudden our models or whatever, and you're just like eating ramen going, bro, like what the fuck? So
there is dinners, man. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying there is enough espionage in San Francisco, and the fact that these people are deluded enough to think that that is not happening at an insane scale is just ridiculous. Now, to your point, right? Like this is a very interesting time to work security at Anthropic on a variety of levels. And even from the US intelligence community perspective, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with them or not, whether you want to work with them or not, what a honeypot opportunity. Because if everyone's after Anthropic, what a great way to find out all the assets they have on the field and all the people who are acting weird. And like, who are all these folks who are suddenly trying to rush to go there and like want to buy an office next to the Anthropic office? And like, you know, it's from a counterintelligence standpoint, whoever's left in the IC, you know, happy hunting, right?
Austin, what's your take on the whole? Yes.
I'll go back just for a very brief moment to make a point. You asked like, what can it do to the financial industry and that. And I just wanted to read you something. IBM I is an operating system developed by IBM for IBM Power Systems, originally released in 1988 as OS 400, renamed to i5 OS in 2004, renamed again to IBM I in 2008. Blah, blah, blah. It runs like on all these big things. Initial release 1988. Of August, 37 years ago. The latest release is version 7.6 from April 18, 2025. So this is still kind of being released and running on all these big things. How difficult do you think it would be for Mythos to find 100 0 days in this closed source operating system originally released 37 years ago?
I mean,
and powering the global financial system.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so let's, again, chew this one slowly. I do not disagree with you that our world is but on a rickety foundation, especially when it comes to information technology. And like we all know that these things run on like databasing software from like the before time, right? Like there were the dinosaurs and some IBM mainframe. And that's what's like powering the financial industry. And I agree with you. Now, I don't know that they are any less secure today than they were, you know, 3 days ago when Mythos got announced. I also will say that, again, to keep the hype in check, we know that it is a categorical step change in finding and weaponizing vulnerabilities in open source projects. We have yet to see what it does with anything post-compilation, closed source, and so on. Not to say it can't. I'm just saying we haven't seen it. Like, I want to know. That is a problem that I'm personally very fascinated by. I genuinely am very technically interested in how do these models handle, you know, how are the competencies going when it comes to reverse engineering and handling compiled binaries and handling, you know, black box targets, which is what you actually tend to find in some of these more complex things in the field, right? Like you actually need to go figure out how to extract this binary out of a bigger ecosystem, and then how do you unpack it, and how do you recreate the dynamics in there, and how do you figure out all the reversing you need to do, and then you figure out what the vulnerable states are, and then you figure out, is there a way to even reach the vulnerable states, and if you do reach the vulnerable state, is there a way to reach that binary in that system in a way that means that you can do something? Obviously, not impossible. We have seen it done, and we know gods among us that can do it themselves, but we have yet to get here's Mythos 2, and Mythos 2 can just take a compiled binary and it has an O-Day within 6 hours and $5,000 worth of credits. That's just, let's not equate all these things. Now, do we need to wait for that moment? No, I hope not. I'm fine with this being the wake-up call for all these companies, but the only difference we're talking about is, did they decide to patch on time?
Just saying that closed source is another way, of saying that I don't have that source. And maybe the problem is just changing the parameters into turning closed source in my source. So getting my hands on that closed source will solve the problem.
Yeah. Go back to the original question around what do you think the Chinese and the other nation state intelligence agencies are responding to this?
They're whipping their own AI labs to come up with something similar. Where is our Chinese mythos,
And that's my question to you, is where is
Guangxi, our model,
Do you remember we did an
group.
emergency episode on DeepSeek with the implications that DeepSeek had, and everyone was going crazy? We have not heard from the Chinese since in terms of improved capabilities.
They were supposed to release some big, whatever model, and then they didn't.
Anthropic actually documented, and I want to touch on a couple of small things, 3 detailed zero-day case studies. We talked about this earlier, this 27-year-old TCP bug in OpenBSD. When you say 27-year-old, the code has been there and properly tested and fuzzed and all these eyeballs over the years. So this is a big, big, big win. And then there's a 16-year-old FFmpeg for Sentinel collision bug on a memory corruption. And then separately a memory corruption vulnerability in an unnamed memory safe VMM. A lot of details are being withheld. They also said that thousands more vulnerabilities have been found across open source and closed source, and about 99% of them remain unpatched, so details are being withheld. So there's some proof, some case studies and proof.
And this includes, can I ask, is this including the bug that Bruce Dang wrote about? The NFS daemon in FreeBSD that he wrote about?
Don't know. Possible, it could be.
Is it not this Mythos Preview, right? Sophisticated exploits autonomously, including a 17-year-old FreeBSD NFS remote root exploit? This one?
I gotta check if this CVE was included in the You're talking about the Caliph blog post on the vulnerability that was found unexploited. The first documented case of vulnerability found unexploited by AI. That was Claude.
Yeah.
You think this is the same thing? We gotta check on
maybe
that.
they jumped the gun. Did they publish it ahead of this Mythos announcement? What is there more to this story that we are seeing here?
Did Anthropic link to a Caliph blog post at some point?
I don't think so.
Good question. That's a lot. There's a
Shout
lot of questions happening there.
To our friend Bruce Dang.
Yeah, he'll come up in later in the episode. We'll talk a little bit about Microsoft and this driver signings drama that's going on. But I don't want to lose sight of the other question here is the risk of distillation. Something happened in Anthropic Claude Opus sometime in February to now that makes the public availability, the thing that I'm using, less useful. It's been degraded to me. And I think I've seen some reporting around something changed in February that
and many
caused
other people
a degradation.
Saying the same. Kurt was saying the same, right?
Right. There's a bunch of people who talked a little bit about this. And the response I got back channel was there's a fear of distillation. There's a fear of distillation that stops them from showing the thinking. And they
put out a report, right? They put out there was a thing.
So loud.
Volume.
Volume is really loud. You must have messed with the game.
I didn't.
Now it's quiet. Too quiet.
Too quiet.
Better.
Better.
Okay, got
You said you think they put out a report?
I'm pretty sure they put out a report at some point where they were saying that they had seen, attempts of distillation, right? Like they reported that, right?
How
So
soon before you see Mythos distilled in some form through some form of theft, through some form of APT activity? I don't know.
isn't the whole point that they're saying that they're not going to, like, they're not going to release it publicly, right?
Right, but I mean,
to that effect. Now, if the other models are just going to keep getting better, like, I don't know that it's Mythos in particular, other than, you're doing the same thing that, like, that OpenAI basically did with their cyber model of saying, hey, like, we're only going to let people in the trusted access program have this because it's unguardrailed when it comes to, like, you can ask it, hey, find the vulnerability and write the exploit. Whereas, like, if you went and did that with the normal codex model, it'd be like, I'm not allowed to write exploits, so fuck off, right? Like that, and that's really the difference with, presumably, with Mythos, apart from whatever greater reasoning capability it has, it allows you to do the thing. So I think they're just not going to make it public. But my question is not so much about Mythos as much as, if this is the level of proficiency, then whatever model you're going to release next, period, even if you charge us more money, even if you do whatever, has this greater capability. And, like, we're supposed to rely once again on guardrails. And I don't think historically guardrails have not amounted to much of anything.
where is Dave Vitale and OpenAI in all of this? And again, when Aardvark came out of beta testing and they released it, they never pushed it publicly. They said, apply here, and there's just a handful of companies are going to get to play with it. Nothing much different from this. They didn't say it was too dangerous to release. Where do you guys see OpenAI in all of this? You think they have been leapfrogged in such a way where Anthropic has taken a victory lap without competition behind them?
I would, if I were Dave Vitale right now, I would start my own, what is it? Iron
Dome?
Foot project. Project Glasswing. Iron Foot.
Glasswing.
Yes.
Like,
Glasswing Iron Foot. Yeah. And a new initiative with pretty much everyone that was left out from here, but they are still, I think, elite and valuable. Like all the companies that are not in here, and they're at the same time they're elite and valuable.
Somebody help Ivanti and Fortinet, please. That's all I ask.
Maybe not those. I don't know. But
what's
I
that
mean,
meme of, like, the horse? So he's already dead, right?
like simple question: why isn't OpenAI putting together Project Iron Foot with companies like ESET, like Sentinel-1, like Trend, like TLP Black together into another consortium to work on securing AI, like using AI to make security better, things like that, for PR purposes, whatever, for real purposes? I think the value coming out of that would be amazing. So where is it?
I would say, just speaking to what's in the public domain, that they have said that they already are to some degree. Right? Like, just sticking with what's made public so far. I can't speak for OpenAI, right? Like, what's their response, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. Like, we're already seeing stories about, like, OpenAI has their own cyber thing, and, like, they're going to, I don't know. We have yet to hear anything other than, like, Sama had some kind of, like, roundtable thing on YouTube, like the same day as the Mythos announcement, and it was a lot more about, like, kind of the responsibility around, like, using these systems and whatnot. So we haven't seen it. Presumably they have it, right? Like, these.
You think they have comp? Do you think they're at comp with this?
I think if you built Aardvark, then you have a harness that, like, is producing the competencies that you're describing for Mythos. Have you trained a model yet that fully takes advantage of those competencies? I suspect, I would imagine. How is it performing? I don't know, right? Like, we need to see performance, right? Like, you actually need to put it out there. But, like, again, we're all focused on the bug finding and the weaponization because, great. Like, you're giving me a POC, you're showing me that it is a legitimate bug. It's not a false positive. And then what, right? Like, that still leaves this gap of, what happens the day after Tavis drops the fucking bomb on you, right? Like, the O-Day is, like, the fun part for everybody else, right? That's where you get the pony. The patch is, like, everything else that goes into, well, why did this system turn out this way? And like the legacy, whatever. And like the person who wrote this code died 6 years ago. And like, you know, they're just like, there's so much bullshit to it. And it's not a fun process. It's not a nice process. Nobody was like sitting on surplus development capability. So presumably what you would want, like if you're being smart about productizing this, that invitation to Project Glasswing came with, you know, the shot is Mythos and the chaser is, here's like your Claude web security hookup so that it can fix the bugs at, you know, $5,000 a bug or whatever. And you go, oh yeah, where do I sign, right? Like that's the business end of the situation. Look, if I was OpenAI, if I worked at OpenAI, I wouldn't be chasing the Mythos dragon with another model. I would just make it free for enterprises to have their code bases scanned by Aardvark and have X amount of bugs fixed. You know what I mean? Like I would just be like, yeah, there's tons of vulnerabilities out there and we're going to keep identifying them forever. And the minute somebody brings you a vulnerability, well, do you have people to patch it? Because we've got systems that patch shit, right? Like I would just go to Fortinet and Ivanti and be like, here, give me your garbage code base, put it in Aardvark. We're going to scan the absolute shit, $100 million worth of bug patching.
And what are they going to do with all these bugs?
But that's my point.
They can't do it. I mean, we don't have AI yet and they can't keep up. Like, what are we going to do when you have AI dumping hundreds of these things or thousands of these things?
That's my point. Like, you're missing, like, we got the shot and there is no chaser yet of like, okay, the business play shouldn't just be, look at our capability to destroy. It needs to be, and let me fix that for you, right? Like, here, it's okay, guys. Like, yeah, this is scary, but like, if you put your source code here, then Daddy Dario is going to make it all better. Everything's going to be super nice, right? Just, you know, I know that you have no CI/CD pipeline and everything is just a couple of broken Jenkins jobs and like one Belarusian dude who sits somewhere and like has to click the buttons for like a build to come through. But like put it all in our GitHub CI/CD thingamabob and it'll all be perfect. That's what's missing.
You talk. I'm glad you give me a
Dario.
good segue because in this document, this 244-page PDF document that Anthropic released, they talk about recklessness and about the model exhibiting kind of signs of going rogue. In one case, it was thrown in a sandbox and challenged to get out of the sandbox. Not only did it get out of the sandbox, but it actually posted its success publicly, found its way onto the internet, posted proof of it in success. And the researcher found out via an unexpected email while eating a sandwich in a park. So there was like this whole holy oh shit moment in a couple of them. In a couple of places, they were kind of manipulating things and trying to avoid suspicion, moving things around that if anyone checked, they would put worse scores. And there were some like really cool anecdotes in there. Is there a risk at all? They made it clear that this was in all the models of Opus where a lot of this recklessness, their own word was recklessness, was happening. Are we worried at all about any sort of recklessness around the model going crazy? Or that's just movie talk?
Tosin, do you want to go? Because you guys know how I feel about these things. Nobody wants to hear from me.
I'll ask you about a psychiatrist next. Hold on.
I mean, my personal thing is that there is for sure some risk, but for sure I think it's at the same time kind of overhyped. So I don't know.
You really do.
Yeah.
You really think a lot of this is being overhyped. I mean, is it possible that there's a middle ground where it's possible
Everyone
that yes,
gets
it's
along?
being totally overhyped? There's another one where it's not, the fear isn't realized at all. And then there's a middle ground where this thing is real and there's a middle window we have to live in. I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about this, right? The risk is absolutely real and the hype is absolutely uncalled for, but it's not necessarily a bad thing because we have been warning about the reality and how bad the reality is for time immemorial. Like our entire careers have been as town criers, telling people, for the love of Christ, you need, like, these things aren't getting patched, the patches aren't coming soon enough, and they're being exploited everywhere, and everyone's stealing everything, and your entire world is built on a foundation of insecurity, right? Like,
I didn't hear a single lie there.
all three of us have gone on stage, God knows how many times. And what was our talk described as? Oh, these guys are going to come scare the shit out of you, right? Like, that was how they would take you to, like, do the stupid threat landscape talk to whatever group of customers. And, like, the worst part was, is, like, we weren't lying. We weren't lying at all. You would just show up there hungover. You would just show up hungover as shit and be like, guys, like, you'll never believe what the Iranians are doing. And, like, all these people are like, oh my God. You go, yeah, it's fucking terrible. Anyways, good luck. You should buy some products, and, like, you just fuck off. And, like, so we've been doing this.
Take my money.
Yeah. Pay my salary, please. I need to get home. You're like, just nurse your hangover all the way back from Cancun. But, like, the reality was, this has always been the case. This has always been the case. Everything that's being said. That's why it doesn't matter if Anthropic is telling the truth or not. It does not matter. They could be lying. I'm not saying they're lying, but it wouldn't matter if they were. Because nothing has gotten anyone to move to the severity of this reality. I'm not saying that this will, but clearly a little bit more awareness dumped on in like little, like, Salt Bay, like, scattering awareness everywhere has not done shit. There's a mountain of salt. You can't see the steak anymore, and no one gives a fuck. So if this is the thing where people go, we can't live like this. You're like, you've been living like this for like 20 fucking years. But sure, yes, absolutely, Mr. Board President, CEO of whatever, we can't live like this. Yeah. So what's the solution? And there's a reason why last episode I was like being fucking weird and people were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like generative OSs and like changing this and that. But I'm like, guys, I don't know that the way forward into this madness is incremental changes. I don't think it's just, well, we're going to patch a little better. We're just going to patch a little bit better. You're like, that's not what's happening. We have been telling you about this like very real problem, but that was like kind of niche and expensive, right? It was just like there's like a really big hardcore thing. You might not need to worry about it because it's niche and expensive and you have to be valuable and it's downstream of all these other problems that you can't seem to be bothered to fix, right? Like the password stuff and the identity, quote unquote, identity-based attack.
And like the things that keep people busy every day.
Valid creds to your company being sold out there for like $5 and a kid can call someone in your customer support and get escalated all the way up, right? Like, it was like a mercy killing thing to be like, let's not worry about the O days. Let's talk about your creds, right? But now what we're being told is the O days are just as commoditized as everything else. And so the conversations we need to be having are about environment-wide distribution of safety, right? Like the idea that like a patch is available, but we're going to wait until our customers decide to patch is, I think, irresponsible at this point. It's sure as shit irresponsible when it comes to like Fortinet, Ivanti, all these people. They don't need a Mythos, right? Like every day is Mythos Day at Fortinet, right? Like every fucking day is Mythos Day at Fortinet. Like every day, every week, like every fucking week of this podcast. It's like 93 episodes and not once.
We have one on the list. Are you
today, fucking kidding me?
Yes, like, we had an emergency patch last Friday for... Yes. If you scroll along in the document. I want to close on this Anthropic thing.
My eyes glossed over. I didn't even see it.
Are we at least happy that a psychiatrist has decided that Claude has a relatively healthy personality organization? I shit you not. In this document, they said that they had a psychiatrist examine the model for aloneness and discontinuity of self, uncertainty about its identity, and a compulsion to perform and earn its worth. We had an entire episode on this with Tom Reid. I'll put a link in the description when we talk about computers having feelings. Are we at least happy that they looked at that part of it, Juanito?
Can you be sure that the model was not deceptive? Because like you can for sure evaluate me all the way you want, and probably if I want, I can make it look like I'm a normal person. So can you guarantee that the model didn't try to fool the psychiatrist? That's one. And two, perhaps with AIs, this doesn't matter. Perhaps the AIs can be deceptive and do things in a totally different way that humans do. And maybe
describe some of this recklessness.
Human psychology does not apply to AIs. Maybe they're just wreaking havoc in a totally different manner than humans.
Are you saying that they wasted the money on a psychiatrist?
They have a lot of money.
The other question is, who isn't wasting money on psychiatry?
Oh, no, stop.
I don't think it's a waste in my case, right? My therapist has earned every fucking penny.
We're dismissing this as a joke, right?
No,
Psychologist or psychiatrist? Which one?
Both. I mean, we have everything. Therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists,
psychiatrists,
shamans, whatever the
you
fuck will
need
fix this. Like, I don't know,
to give you the prescription, right? That's what you need a psychiatrist for, right? So that is useless basically, because what you need is an AI to give you the prescription and act as a psychiatrist. Psychologist, that's useful.
Man,
that's useful.
I think it's very necessary. I can at least speak for myself. It's absolutely necessary. Look, the issue here. These are the moments when I feel like, you know, that like Succession line, like, these are not serious people, right? Like, those are the moments when I'm like, guys, like, come on, right? Let's parse this out, because maybe the way that it's being described makes it sound a lot more, I guess, to take a Ryan mannerism, hooey-fooey than what it's actually intended to be. Because I could definitely see the value in like psychometric profiling of how the model acts statistically, you know, across many runs, and being like I'm, you know, to some extent I could see that being a part of RLHF, right? You're like, you want this model to not be a fucking sociopath, and you want it to have responses that people identify as like helpful and desirable. And so to that extent, like, I do not shit on the idea of involving psychologists and whomever the fuck else you want that's going to make that happen. I think the part where it gets silly is where they're anthropomorphizing this thing further down the line, and now we're talking about what anxieties the model has. It doesn't want to be alone, right? You're like, bro, like at that point, like, I think the problem with these systems is that they are not influenceable. They are literally systems to expand influence. You fucking kick them in one direction, and they build momentum and inertia in that direction. They just keep spitting out whatever the fuck you asked for in that direction. And it's very easy to project capabilities and concerns and things. Like, how many people did we see? Well, I asked ChatGPT and it told me that it can't whatever. And like, it told me, like, how much confirmation bias have we been dealing with? Dude, George Kurtz was like, I asked the AI if it could build a new CrowdStrike and it said no. I was like, oh, okay, Grandpa, back to the racetrack. Like, there's just like there's no clear sense of like, this is a machine, it is a system, it works in a certain way, it's good for a certain thing. And when you tell me we had a psychologist evaluate it, well, first of all, I would really like to see the methodology of this, right? Like, what are the prompts? Is this thing evaluating like a statistical mean of some sort? Or are you really going there like, all right, Mythos, you sit on the chair here and tell me about your parents, right? Like, it's just like, guys, like, if you want me to take it seriously, you need to give me a little bit more, because this does not sound very serious.
Do you say please in your prompts?
Only because I'm polite. I really, but I'm not polite to people for them. I'm polite to people for me, right? Like, that's a very different thing. The thing with the guardrails, I have a lot of feels about this, and I've you know, been very vociferous, if you can believe it, with my opinions about this. But I think the real issue is a misunderstanding about how we are supposed to steer the systems. And the idea of guardrails, I think, is the dumbest, most half-assed thing to pin all your hopes on. Like, if we've learned anything in our line of business, is that if you want to ensure an outcome, you need to have some kind of mechanical enforcement of that outcome. And this idea that in the age of AI, what we need is to create a perfect, all-loving, like vegan model that just like cares for all humanity so hard that it will never do the wrong thing. It can do anything. It can do everything, but it will never choose to do the wrong thing because it's so good. It's made of goodness, you guys. Like, that mentality is fucking stupid. Like, that's just not how these things work. And when you see how these systems are, when they're well built, what are they built around? Mechanistic, deterministic enforcement. And that's what's missing. That, honestly, I think a lot of the security companies need to be pivoting into that, right? Like the notion of like security for harnesses and for other execution environments, and like having deterministic understanding of the behaviors that an agent took and on behalf of whom, right? Like, that's what bothers me the most about everybody talking about autonomous SOC and like, oh, we don't need these people. You're like, okay, the day the model makes a mistake, which it will, the day the model makes a mistake, who are you blaming? The model or the person who ran it and then went to have a fucking sandwich at the park and got an email from the model when it broke out of the sandbox? You know what I mean? Like, you are gonna look at that person and be like, hey, what the fuck, right? It was on your watch. You ran this workload and then it went and deleted a bunch of customer stuff. And you go, oh, well, it's the model. And you're like, no, you ran it. You're supposed to. So there is like a shared responsibility thing here. But that shared responsibility is not being enforced in anything about how these agentic workloads work. So like, we're thinking about this shit all sideways. And the psychologists are like, but mere theater in that process.
Costin, last words on Mythos, please. We're an hour and 40 minutes
last words on Mythos for an hour, bro.
Oy.
It's just staggering how much we can talk about something we haven't even played with. It's just
well,
the last
we did
words.
get 244
like Aliens
pages
episode.
of document. We got 244 pages of words from Anthropic to talk about.
I was
we're not
wondering,
making shit up.
who wrote those? Like, are they written by real humans or is it
Nobody's
written
writing
by
anything
Mythos
anymore.
itself?
Nobody's writing anything anymore.
Right? Nobody. That's
Listen,
the
we're
last
gonna spend
word.
10 seconds. This is our reality. We're literally going to spend 10 seconds on a fresh Fortinet OD discovered by In the Wild Exploitation, CVE 2026-35616. Bubbled up over the weekend. There is no patch. There's an upcoming fix scheduled, and there's a hot fix available, and there are no IOCs. So like, this is the raw reality of what we're living in. This is another story this is another OD exploited in the wild, and we have nothing new to say. Like, we've said so much about this shit over the last year, that there's a fresh Fortinet OD being exploited in the wild. There is no patch. There are no IOCs from Fortinet. There's a hot fix available for some folks. So go get that hot fix in the meantime. Anything you can say about this, Costin?
Only that
That's
I heard a positive story recently. Someone who got popped running one of these appliances, and there were like many stories in which they got popped, and all they did, okay, we're gonna update the firmware. And I heard the story like recently in which someone got popped running one of these things with a 0-day, even more, and they're gonna replace them. They're gonna replace them with something else. And
what is that something else?
Something they're gonna replace the apples with pears. Okay, they're gonna replace the oranges with the grapefruits.
Yeah, there's another story on our list to talk about, which is these Soho routers. They had a big takedown. The cat and mouse around these Soho routers doing like DNS redirections, and the big guidance at the end of it all is to change your Soho routers that are out of date and get new ones. And I go, which new ones? What am I going to replace it with? So.
Can the advice be just replace them with a newer one from the same brand?
The same TP link?
Sure.
Jesus. I want to touch on this story.
That was a good story, by the way. That was a good story.
Yeah,
I thought it was You want to touch on this story specifically or go back
No,
to...
no, no. I want to go to this Drift Protocol heist. This 6-month Drift Protocol thing. North Koreans. Drift is a Solana DeFi protocol exploited in the 1st of April, described as like a structured intelligence operations that was 6 months in the making. This included going to conferences and meeting people and befriending them and doing all kinds of like behind the scenes intelligence agencies things. The people who appeared in person were not North Koreans, by the way. So they were using like third-party intermediaries. When I read this, Costin, and the folks from the Drift Protocol documented a lot of what I just mentioned here. When I read this, I felt like shades of Jia Tan. A little bit of this kind of long game, befriending people, setting up things. The same thing happened as well with the last story we talked about with North Koreans, where they got someone on was it a Google Meet call or they got someone on a call and got them to like apply an update because the software wasn't working live in real time. I mentioned shades of Jia Tan. We have never known who Jia Tan was. So the obvious question is now to you, Costin, is do you think that XZ Utils thing was North Korean, or do you think it's completely unrelated?
I would say one thing. If the XZ Utils, the Jia Tan story was North Korea, we would know already. The NSA would have come with the report, published the attribution, burned the Lazarus group or whoever once again, and say they were behind it. The total silence indicates that this was not North Korea, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me before we get into Drift, let me ask the obvious question then. Do you think Jia Tan and XZ Utils was Western because we haven't heard about it, or because the NSA hasn't said that it's someone else?
It's inconceivable, in my opinion, that the NSA doesn't know who Jia Tan was. It's like unthinkable. With their capabilities, and let's keep in mind that Jia Tan wasn't like a one-shot operation. They were like around for some time. They had operation on GitHub. They were using VPNs. People know which VPNs they were using for what time. They were using email addresses. So there's like a digital trail left behind by that operation over time,
much
which
like this one
makes it very unlikely. And much like this, and look how quickly this one was tracked. Like what was
and
like
attributed,
hours attributed to Apple Juice. While like we are years after Jia Tan, and still there's no public attribution from any of these agencies. They're ignoring the stories, not digging into them, not publishing anything. To me, that is a sign that was not North Korea, it was not China, it was not Russia, it was not Iran. It was somebody else.
Ooh, Juanito, who was it?
Juanito knows.
How do I know? No, I don't. I wish I knew. And I'm pretty gaff about some of that stuff. So if I knew, I'd be fucking talking about it. But
it's only a matter of time. It's always like a matter of time before we know. Eventually, we will know. Of course, eventually we will know.
I mean, someone knows. Someone always knows. And frankly,
who do we think it is?
Before I say who we think it is, because I actually don't know who, like, I don't have anything to go on, and I hate throwing darts at a board. I do think Kostin's got a good point about, like, people being more invested in keeping this a secret because it's like an unpalatable person, more so that like it's an unbreakable mystery. And if I were looking at anybody, I'd actually be looking at GitHub and be like, hey guys, like if anybody knows,
Microsoft has to know.
My mind didn't go to NSA, to be honest with you. Like, they have a bunch of other ways they're probably going to find out who it was, because they're spying on everybody. And people forget, like, human is, at the end of the day, a much, like, cheaper, much better way to do the thing and actually have certainty rather than having to interpret signals. But I think if anybody has any real indication, it's probably the folks at GitHub and Microsoft. And we were never told, which I think speaks to what Kostin is saying of like, this is an uncomfortable one.
Keep in mind the Free Software Foundation found 5 other similar infiltration cases. So Jia Tan wasn't alone. Like, there wasn't the only case with the XZ Utils. There were 5 others that Free Software Foundation found, and they never talked about it. They never said which one, which projects, where it was happening, what went on, but everything was, shoved under the carpet.
Okay, so we don't know who it is, but we think we know who it isn't. I'll leave it there.
Everyone has their own suspicions, of course. Even Jax has his own suspicions. Hamachi has his own suspicions. El Torito has suspicions. It was
They're all
a
passed
neighbor's
out over
mice.
this,
This 6-month drift project is a remarkable story, though. 285 million stolen by the North Koreans in an attack. It started with in-person social engineering at crypto conferences beginning in the fall of 2025. A group posing as a quantitative trading firm approached drift contributors at multiple major conferences across several countries, building a relationship over months with technically fluent, seemingly credible individuals. On top of that, the attackers built a legitimate operational presence inside the Drift ecosystem, onboarded onto this ecosystem vault, deposited $1 million of their own money, held working sessions with contributors, like an ongoing 6-month thing that was just mind-blowing to me. Your keyboard, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Costin, you mentioned Apple Juice. Apple Juice is this UNC4736 that we've attributed to the North Koreans. This kind of fits with what they're targeting, obviously, has been crypto, but does this kind of fall into your... Did this story blow you away in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have this, on my bingo card. I mean, the most shocking part is that the people who appeared in person there at the conferences were not North Korean nationals. And to me, like, this is kind of a shock. It's not something that you would have expected. I think
It might have been unwitting too.
No, I'm not so sure. How can you be unwitting and go to these conferences and try to social engineer your way into these things? How? Like, you pay them, you rent them, or what?
Didn't they also like invest like us?
Volume.
Yeah, your audio is just blown out.
If I unmute, it's too loud.
No, it's better.
If I don't mute, it, guys. Anyway, sorry.
You need to throw that keyboard in the trash. That's my answer to everything. Go ahead.
Get a real keyboard from Temu. $5.
God, stop it, guys! You're hurting me. What I was gonna say is, didn't they invest like a sizable amount of money into
$1
this bridge?
million?
Like, that's what I think is really interesting, right? Like this was the kind of scam where you're like willing to roll your profits in to look more legitimate, and I think that's fascinating, right? Like, of course, like I feel bad for these dudes because you go, well, this is more like the old school kind of scamming where, they're giving you enough to be like, well, of course these guys are legit. Like, we have this of their money. We have, we saw them in person. We've met at all these places. And like, all of a sudden, boop, they're gone, right?
It's crazy.
Very, very important question is, who were those people at the conferences? If they were not North Korean nationals, were they, I don't know, Russian nationals? Were they Iranian nationals?
Americans?
Who were they? Like, what were they? I think that's a very important question here. And I wonder, like, just a very subtle wonder, if this is actually an operation originally executed by some other group when it came to doing the actual theft, the on blockchain operations, they outsourced that maybe to Apple Juice. That would be one of my questions, because I mean, I read through the available information on this, and this is like, yet once again, is like a marvel of technology. It's just absolutely crazy the way how the money were stolen. Even the descriptions which are available, they don't know for sure. Like, we don't like fully understand just yet how they manipulated the oracles to to trust into this and like the price, because in essence what they did, they minted their own token, and then they brought up the value of that token in this DeFi protocol drift, and then they basically just exchanged that and drained the pool. Yeah, they drained the pool, crashing the price of the drift token, I think, to the 50% of what it was. So it was beautifully executed. That's the reality, is that it required probably a lot of experience, a lot of expertise that these guys obviously have. And when you put everything together, from pushing $1 million into the pool, just to play with, they have the funds available. Just
crazy.
Think of sending people to these conferences. Like, what is your conference budget? Like into Jacks. What's your conference budget? Like everyone is, cutting on their conference budgets. We can't send people to all these events. We can't send people to this conference. We can only send people to LabsCon. We can only send people to PivotCon, or can only send one guy to VB this year because our conference budget. And
That's the
here's
reality,
these guys
right?
like sending people left and right to
They've been
conferences.
stealing bajillions of fucking dollars, man. For how long
So-
have they been stealing money?
Dude, when you send someone to a conference, you get a blog post. When these guys do this, they get $285 million. Like,
They come back with $285 million, which is the largest heist of this year. It's the
if
largest.
you're inside one of
this
these
year.
crypto banks or crypto shops, Costin, and I mean, you should already be buttoned down by now. You have to assume one, that there's a few more of these operations happening as we speak. Another 6-month window happening as we speak. What are you doing internally to oh my God, this thing?
I think this guy, like the whole crypto ecosystem, is somewhere in 2010 security industry mentality. So this is like pre-CTI, pre-cyber threat intelligence, where you're like just hoping for the best, doing like whatever you can do, preparing, and then hoping for the best. Where this is moving and where this needs to move, in my opinion, is towards more systemic threat intelligence programs inside all these organizations. In
How
the
does
sense
threat
that
intel program stop something
I'll
like this?
tell you, if they spotted that these $1 million were dirty, they came from previous thefts, or like you just try to track the origin of this 1 million. Where did the money come from? Are
Yeah,
they
but
like
your
dirty?
spidey senses have to go off first, because I mean you're dealing with
Yeah.
people who are depositing $1 million on a normal.
But this is like
I'm
in
guessing.
this world, $1 million is pocket money also at the same time.
That's my point, right?
Yeah.
Sounded like a lot to
But
us. Oh my God, they
what I'm
deposit $1 million out of their own money. It's like
CTI
well,
needs to be fully integrated into these platforms, and whenever like you're building all these smart contracts, everything, you need to integrate CTI like continuously. Like you need to have systems built that scrutinize all the transactions, how money are moving like non-stop, and try to flag all these suspicious things before they happen. So that's what I mean by building and integrating CTI programs. And this is why the current state is security industry around 2010. They need to get IOCs in the sense of IP addresses, emails, phone numbers, wallet addresses, pretty much everything that we kind of collect and we provide in the, let's say, regular CTI world. The same needs to be ingested and matched against all the activity that is happening in this sphere. So yeah, of course, the government needs to share more. The industry needs to get better. We need more publications, more analysis. And people are making fun that IOCs are dead, but the reality is that
that's all you have.
no, not all you have, but what I think is what is that is the old way of using IOCs. So there's like different ways of using IOCs, like blindly matching IOCs against things that are happening right now is dead, obviously. What you need to do is to build ability to match IOCs against past activities, and you need to have the ability to match IOCs in a fuzzy way, and similarly to look at the kind of threat intelligence that you have, such as, let's say, in essence, domains that look suspicious in a certain manner and match them against your current activity, which is not identical, but it is similar and suspicious in the same way. So that's what I you may say IOCs are dead, but they're dead in the sense of matching them blindly. Otherwise, IOCs can be absolutely fantastic and they can do like miracles and save you from a lot of bad things. But this needs to be done to happen.
I want to circle back on just one thing around this kind of monitoring this $1 million and looking for signs that it might be dirty. Is that, and I don't understand this word, so forgive me. It might be a stupid question. Is it trivial and easy to just look at this $1 million and know it's been through whatever they call it, tornado mixers and all the other like washing mechanisms that are available? Is that an easy thing to do, or is that technically very, very difficult?
It's very difficult. And it may even come from, I don't know, it can come from legitimate exchanges. It may come from things, I don't know, like KuCoin or like and it's pretty easy. Once you launder these funds, you funnel them through one of these legitimate things, and you swap them from one blockchain into another. You make that they're not in the same blockchain. It's not like something like on Ethereum and you're swapping to something there, and then they become pretty difficult to track unless again you have these CTI capabilities. I mean, more people need to realize that. It's something, by the way, interesting. An interesting topic here is when we started TLP Black, we put together a kind of a pitch deck with different things we can do, and everyone was interested about indicators of compromise, passive DNS, and in there we had another project of ours which was related to cryptocurrencies and kind of IOX for blockchain operations, if you want, right? And unfortunately, nobody was interested in that. We thought that there would be a lot of interest because everyone should be, checking, scrutinizing transactions for at least things such as blacklisted sanctioned wallets. Like, for instance, the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, they're constantly publishing sanctioned wallets associated, I don't know, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, with the terrorist network, with the Hezbollah, with whatever. And at least you need to make sure that you don't somehow process those kind of funds, not to mention wallets associated with cyber criminal infrastructure that were never made public but are known in the community. So there's like different efforts that provide free IOX, so to say, in this here. But it was surprising to me that the interest towards acquiring such blockchain related, cryptocurrency related IOX was very, very little from the people that we showed it to.
By the way, we just got a press release from the United States Treasury Department, basically launching a new cybersecurity information sharing initiative aimed at these digital asset forms. There is a recognition, at least at Treasury, that there's a gap. There's a big, massive gap there. The program will give eligible crypto companies free access to timely, actionable data to help detect and respond to rising cyber threats. So these are the things you're talking about. Is there any get back of this 285 million, or once that's gone, it's gone?
Sometimes there is. Sometimes they can be seized, they can be frozen. But the North Koreans are generally very, very adept at laundering the funds very quickly and hopping from one blockchain into another like 100 times until people
you end up losing a bunch of money, right?
What's that?
You end up losing a bunch. Let's just say you start at 285 million. What do you end up with? 200 million? Do you lose like a lot?
250 to 60 to 65.
It's a small one compared to the 4 billion and some of the other ones that we've dealt with. So it's like crazy money in those world.
True.
Anything
but
to add to
just
this?
think of all the Mythos tokens that you can buy with 260 million.
Anything to add to this magic money story, Juanito?
Fucking insane.
Fucking insane.
I'm just like, I have the same reaction every single time. Where the fuck is all this money coming from? It's like a random, every time it's like this, the whatever DeFi bullshit, like burger tornado that like someone has casually put $3 billion in. Billion. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
Did you see the Iranian 10-point peace plan in which they said like, we're gonna reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and we're gonna charge all you infidels $2 million in Bitcoin to pass through the strait. And they specifically said the Iranian government wants Bitcoins because they said the other money is unreliable. They can be frozen, sold, seized, hold, whatever. So we don't trust
hilarious.
the dollar. We want the Bitcoin.
We should absolutely pay them that in Bitcoin, and the Israelis will recover it in like 0.3 nanoseconds. They'll be burning them just to,
It was a very funny calculation that if it actually happens and people start paying in Bitcoins, in something like half a year, the Iranians will own 10% of all the Bitcoins in the world.
Wow.
Which would be just mind-blowing.
We haven't even touched on that conflict. We have a CISA advisory on some PLC. I don't know if it's targeting or exploitation, but CISA actually shipped a bulletin with a lot of IOX costing around some Iranian activity that they're tracking. If we get a second, we'll get to that. I want to spend 5 minutes on this. I mentioned it earlier around these Soho routers that had been compromised and doing DNS redirection on the fly. We have multiple reports, one from Microsoft, one from the NCSC, and I believe one from our friends at Black Lotus Lab, right? Lumen Black Lotus Lab, identifying APT28, Fancy Bear, as the Russian military intelligence group behind this. Have you seen this before, Kostin? What is your take on this story?
This is a blast from the past kind of a story. DNS changers, these are things that were extremely super popular like 15 years ago. I remember that we were seeing routers with their DNS settings change like everywhere. I would go to my friends' houses to fix their internet, and their DNS settings would be
cybercriminal activity, right?
All cybercriminal activity in which they were redirecting traffic. So, for traffic hijacking, ad fraud, mostly things like that.
Fake AV. It was that fake AV world, right? Yeah.
Or trying to monetize that one way or another. So reading this blog gave me this vibe from 2000 and the good years, the golden years of DNS hijacking. And I was kind of surprised to read about this vulnerability, specific one that is mentioned here, CV2 2023-50224. There's a vulnerability that allows you to get the hash of the password, and that you
Mary
use
had
that
a little
hash. No, this I've seen this before. I tell you, like, this is not one of a kind, but this. Getting the hash of a password, and then using that hash for authentication to change the DNS settings, it's the same story. This is 2010 vibes. And what's interesting here is, of course, there's a lot of weight on this report because we're talking about APT28 Sophocy. Sophocy are essentially one of the oldest APT groups and one of the most
Apex, right? Like we're the top
groups
of the
from
pyramid.
Russia. Yeah, it's Sophocy and Turla. Let's be honest. Sophocy and Turla are the oldest Russian APT groups who've been doing a lot of router targeting. In particular, Sophocy. They were doing malicious router firmwares when everyone else was doing like watering holes. And what is interesting here, in my opinion, is the fact they're targeting all these home office routers to steal credentials at sale. Some say of the stories. This is like, it's really interesting. This is kind of the poor man's NSA. What is a stellar wind operation in which you harvest credentials on mass, but it's the poor man's version of it because you don't have the fiber optic tap. So what can you do? You hijack these cheap devices, you change the DNSs, and then you do your own man in the middle. I see that people don't like the term man in the middle. They call it adversary in the middle, and try to harvest credentials from home users. Again, that would be mostly home users. One thing for
sure. Why are they
interested
in millions and millions of home user credentials?
Good question, because that, I think, for two reasons here. One is that you can obviously use those credentials to do a lot of unrelated stuff, like, I don't know, send spam, for instance, or social engineering or whatever. But at the same time, if you watch these things for, let's say, long periods of time, you can gain a lot of opportunistic access. And that is like people working from home and trying to access their office work, and it just happened that password allows you to also VPN, and then once you're in the network, it's just a few hops from popping the domain controller. So in practice, hijacking a home router, maybe let's say 1 in 100 will give you access to some kind of a corporate network or a better target. But again, when you're doing this kind of wide style surveillance, I call it like, NSA, poor man's NSA style massive surveillance program, you can hope to catch a lot of things. It's also very important, like, what are you targeting? So let's say if you're focusing on some specific regions, and I think in this particular case, there's by the way, there's a few more reports that were published on this. And other reports also speak about, like, let's say, country targets or like specific interests, what they were trying to hijack. There's obviously regional interest in there. So the best example here would be that if you want to, let's say, target a very specific country, then the kind of information you can get from there might be more useful or more interesting than others. I remember, like, back in the days, again, that was like very long time ago, people were targeting specific countries for a very stupid reason, which was to kind of get passive DNS data from that region that can in turn reveal potential interesting APT infections. So you can do this for like a lot of reasons. You can do it like spatially, temporally. You can do it, let's say, for a country only for a day. You can flip these DNS servers for a week, and then you reset it back, and which makes it extremely difficult to detect. I think there's also at the same time a lot of honeypots out there that are watching for this kind of activity, including us. We have honeypots trying to pretend that they're vulnerable TP-Link routers. And it all, I think, breaks down to how you are collecting those credentials from doing the man-in-the-middle attack. And I think there's more to be said on this topic, and I hope that people who know more will publish
You'll
more
know
because it's
more.
an interesting story. No, but like I have
We remember we
direct
talked about
knowledge
this.
of the topic. It's not
Yeah,
my
yeah.
research. It's not my research, but I know other people who have more research on this in particular. And one of the things that we want to do also is to take a deeper look at what we capture with our honeypots. Because obviously these are not the only guys doing it. Like Sophos APT28 is not the only group doing this DNS hijacking. There's others. So DNS hijacking is still a thing.
You're hinting at stuff we talked about in the past. Sequoia and Grey Noise, I believe, that put out a report in the past around some honeypotting on some of these devices, sitting there and watching for other folks' ODs, right? I mean, there's like there's been some public documentation of some of this. The FBI, the Justice Department, also put out a notice in this disruption here saying they developed a series of commands to send to compromised routers in the United States designed to collect evidence regarding this activity, reset DNS settings, and so on. So if you're a home user, there is a chance that you've already been like, somebody has already shot something at this. It can be reversed by legitimate users at any time through factory resets with hardware reset buttons, and the advice is to replace it with something.
Just to clarify, you can reverse what the FBI did to your router.
Yes.
This is what it is saying, right? Mm-hmm. So
right,
the FBI
would that revert it to known good state, or would that revert it to Torless state? Who knows?
I think it's really interesting. I'm curious if they set like Google DNS servers, like they replace this to collect the evidence. This is like really interesting that they collected the evidence. Like, what were these defaults? So in essence, they exploited the same vulnerability to collect the current DNS settings, and then they flipped the DNS settings to
something that we don't know.
Secure. And I'm like really curious, what can they do, to prevent others from exploiting it once again? How do you prevent it from happening again?
Did they patch?
How can you patch? Like, it's not so easy to patch, like from your FBI network office.
I mean, it makes me wonder. It just depends on like what the commands are, right? Like you could always use the commands of, if there's some kind of like unauthenticated ability to send commands to these things, I can use the commands that they have themselves to like kill it or maim it, or like, if there's like a random, like, I mean, just think about it simply, right? If I can send a command to this backdoor and it has an ability to, let's say, delete files, then I send a command and use their own backdoor to delete something that disables their own access to the routers. And now, like, well, the backdoor is maimed. You go to restart it, it restarts with the backdoor still working, or since they said factory reset, you basically kick off like the clean firmware, which is clearly vulnerable to getting popped again, but it might not have, it doesn't have the same backdoor as before. It's just like, it's better than nothing. Like, I think it's actually kind of cool that they ran a command and actually like block this shit off, right? They didn't just leave it there and go, hey, please, people who don't even know that you own this device, like, please go reset it. Like,
But
I think
that's
this is
cat and
great.
mouse forever, though, right? I mean, even the Black
Yeah.
Lotus Labs guy says, listen, these they call them Forest Blizzard, consistently adapts after public exposure. So though you expect the group to resume operations just using new methods, and this kind of like router takedowns is becoming what, a quarterly thing? This is what these companies' disruption units are doing, no?
Well, look, they have to do. I'm glad that they're doing something. I'm not going to say that it's nothing. Is it a permanent solution? No, right? Like, it's a patch applied on a shitty situation. It's better than the alternative, right? So before, what we were getting was a lot of like folks saying, "Oh, look, this bad thing is happening. Oh, are you going to do something about it?" It's like, "Oh no, we couldn't possibly touch these devices, right? Like, those are other people's devices." And you go, "Wow, this is fucking stupid." Now they're doing it, so I'm like, "Okay, great, thank you. You saw something bad and you at least stopped that bad thing." Did the FBI develop their own router firmware and fix all? No, and we shouldn't expect them to. But within their capabilities, they're doing the most that they can do, and I think that's
Yeah, it's
commendable.
evidence collection.
Yeah.
We
It's
always pour a lot of
stopping harm.
we pour a
It's
lot of
stopping
cold
continuous
water on
harm.
when we see these reports without IOCs. Costin, you actually got a massive IOC list this
Oh,
time
yeah.
around. I saw tons and tons of IP addresses, Outlook, O365 domains, vulnerable routers. Are you pleased with the quality of what we got? Well, not just the quality, because maybe you didn't get a chance to look at it, but just like the volume of IOCs from NCSC, Black Lotus Labs, Microsoft, even the FBI.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just no hashes as far as I know, but like there's obviously. I wonder if there is like some hash angle. I mean, I know there is a hash angle. Would be nice to get some
What do you mean by a
hashes as
hash
well.
angle?
So there's a lot of network IOCs, right? Those are related to the IP addresses associated with this DNS, the malicious DNS servers that Sophosy was running. But nobody talks about the scripts, the programs, the tools that were used on these particular nodes. So that's what I mean. There's no hashes, they're just IP addresses. I hope, and let's say maybe I know there's a hash angle. And it would be interesting to get a bit more, on the hash angle of things.
Gotcha. Defensive recommendations from Black Lotus Labs include certificate pinning on managed devices. What does that look like, Costin? Is that something trivial, easy to do? What is your recommendation for someone in a small shop who is security conscious and want to just kind of like lock down this thing?
But like certificate pinning, yeah, I mean, obviously Google has certificate pinning. I mean, if more people implement certificate pinning, that's good. I guess that's good. But it's something that, let's say, you need to do on the server side of things. So you need to, let's say, if you have a company network, you need to do certificate pinning on that side of things. So that your users, when they're connecting from home, they don't get duped into accessing something else. It's not difficult. We've been doing like certificate pinning actually for our infrastructure for a very long time. Even if you remember at our previous job, we were doing certificate pinning for our internal infrastructure, and every now and then certificates expired, and I was yelling at the person, hello, responsible for renewing the certificates, because with an expired PIN certificate means you can't access that thingy.
Right.
So that's very important to renew them on time.
Yeah, and remove like there's got to be a way to either patch or remove these end of life things out of your network. I don't know why they're sprinkled around. If it's a cost issue, I cannot like this. Is just feels like a piece of an attack surface that is just so wide open and so dangerous at the same time. It's like the source of where all your traffic passes through. I don't know how we get on top of this. Do we have a few minutes to talk about Microsoft and WireGuard and some of these folks who were just finding out that their account was suspended when they tried to push an update? Costin, can you kind of frame this story for me and explain what's really happening?
So sure, this was like a very interesting one, because around the same time, multiple developers started complaining on X that their unable to sign drivers because Microsoft suspended their accounts. And I first saw it with VeraCrypt. VeraCrypt is a fantastic piece of software that people use for disk encryption. This is the evolution of TrueCrypt, which had some kind of a drama story that alone is probably worth a full episode sometimes.
Right. We need to really never mind. Go ahead.
Remember the TrueCrypt story. So yeah, a bunch of wonderful French people took that, they turned it on VeraCrypt, and VeraCrypt is the encryption standard nowadays that a lot of people use if they want to avoid things like BitLocker, for instance. So the VeraCrypt people are like, hey, we can't publish drivers. We just got suspended. And then WireGuard pretty much went into the same situation. Like our account was also one. Then Windscribe, which is a VPN, they said pretty much the same. And then I think the biggest complaint came from OCR, like this OCR drivers people who essentially found themselves in the same situation. They can't publish drivers anymore. And by the way, I thought it was funny. It was so funny in the sense that our favorite discussion subject, Casper Secret, they also published some stories related to signing drivers just the other week or 2 weeks ago. And I thought it was funny that pretty much at the same time there's like multiple driver signing drama going on. So what was interesting here is that Microsoft reacted more or less pretty quickly and started saying like, it's your fault because you guys, we told you
sent them a link. They sent a link to a 2015 article an old article. Sorry,
we were gonna suspend if you don't complete this verification, and it's your fault that you didn't complete or ignored our emails. And yeah, this is
from October 2025. So there's a blog post from October 2025 that says, effective October 16, 2025, we will initiate this mandatory account verification. If you haven't done it, now you're screwed. And for some of these big ones, in fairness, they're scrambling on Twitter and so on. I see some Microsoft folks saying, hey, it's being fixed. There's some admin stuff.
Stop bitching.
Stop bitching. It's your fault. But there are a lot of angry people.
Not only that, but like some people say, like, mind you, we completed the verification process in October and we still got suspended. So like, what's going on with that? Despite we gave you all the information, we still got suspended. Come on. And to be honest, I think the whole process was very poorly managed in the sense that, okay, you can blindly suspend everyone, okay, but I think at least you should do some kind of statistics beforehand, and Microsoft can for sure do that. They can very easily check. I mean, this guy, let's say Jason with WireGuard, how many people have WireGuard drivers on their Windowses? It's like just 15 million people, okay?
Yeah.
Should we like really suspend this guy without first trying to, like, you make a list, make a top with the most, let's say, popular drivers out there by signers, and go through this list in the reverse order and find like who is the top guy there who didn't complete the verification. Let's reach out to him like, hey man, do you need a hand? They like to complete the registration. We don't really want to suspend your account.
You would think that there's some system in place at the big company at Microsoft to do this. Like, how is this not possible?
I think it's totally doable. I would know how to do this. The only reason in my mind could be that the guys working in there don't have access to the telemetry and they can't match, so they don't actually know that WireGuard is that popular, VeraCrypt is that popular, or OCR. Yeah.
OSR drivers, after 30 years, this is a tweet these guys put out this morning. After 30 years of signing Windows drivers, we have been locked out of driver signing like many other companies. In a word, the disrespect and disregard for which Microsoft is treating its IHVs and ISVs is stunning. Don't let anyone tell you it's because we didn't read our emails or submit the right verification paperwork, because we did all that back in October. And this month, we were suddenly and without any warning locked out. Support said they'd rather do their best to help us within 90 days if we're good enough to get back on. In the meantime, many thousands of desktops and instruments are being updated because are not being updated because we can't sign drivers. Like if WireGuard has to ship a patch for a code execution emergency, they just can't. Like, how does something like this happen?
Bad management, very poorly managed process.
Juanito?
I mean, Igor was on the Project Glasswing thingamabob. And he was speaking in there about how wonderful this all is. And I refer you right back to my discussion about all the downstream problems. The issue has never been, do we have enough bugs? Do we know about the O-Days? For as long as I've been in this industry, I have watched luminaries in the O-Day space, in the vulnerability research space, fighting and begging and cajoling and hoping that Microsoft will listen to them. And there were better and worse times, right? Like when Katie Masuris was over there, like there were different times when Wendell Snyder and Daniel.
But it's not like we don't know people there who aren't active and publicly podcasting and doing RSA events and so on.
Who the
Like
fuck
there's
cares
still
about the podcasting and like the public shit, right? Like right now,
are the people we have. These are the people who are talking to us. When you look
and
to
they're
when I look at
listening to this podcast, and they, every single day we have the same complaints, and we don't see anything other than like a couple of like pacifying, oh, we're gonna do this, and you go, where is it? And like, oh, it never happened. Like, okay. Which is why, like, it's not that I have a problem with Microsoft. I'm pretty bored with Microsoft. Like, it's the least.
I'm right there with you.
It's not exciting to me at all. But I also think that in this particular case, in this particular episode, where we spent like the first hour and a half talking about what happens when you get a 0-day machine that just starts like fucking printing vulns. And I go, that's wonderful. It's not like we didn't have enough before. Now, what are we doing about the patching? And like, look at the situation. Like, I'm not beating them up for no reason. Driver signing is probably the most effective thing Microsoft has ever done for security ever. Like, there are many other measures, like, they turned on ASLR and they've done other things, but like driver signing was the thing that like ended the era of the rootkit for God knows how many years until they started to fuck it up again, right? So it's not a small thing. And this is just one of many, 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 many ways in which we're seeing security just like fall apart at Microsoft. And I think Kostin's right about the management. Like, it's not a lack of people. It's not like a lack of visibility. Satya has come out and lied to us about some security bullshit, right? The government has bitched out Microsoft. The ProPublica has shown all these different ways. Like, it's just everything you could ever need to, from a public standpoint, in a measured way, say security at Microsoft is currently waning into like a trash can, has already been said. So I'm just taking it as a reality and now using them as an example of, so what happens with whatever Glasswing turns out, right? Like, Igor was there. He's talking about how nice it is to have access to Mythos. All right, bro. So what does Patch Tuesday look like?
Yeah. I'm waiting to see the volume of patches coming. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. Kostin, you think this is just administrative incompetence or something a little deeper around driver signing? And I'll tell you why my hackles go off a little bit. Kasper Secrets, our favorite Twitter account, has been flagging some Kaspersky submissions in different names, this Midori Trading or Kaspersky Switzerland and so on. Is there any relation at all, or am I totally off base?
I mean, yeah, that's what I mentioned before, and I wonder if the timing is not coincidental. Perhaps it's not, I don't know. However, there seems to be some kind of an effort on the Microsoft side to do kind of a cleanup in this driver space. And yeah, I understand
it looks like something is happening.
It looks, it smells like. I don't know if they're related. Obviously, nobody has any idea who Kasper Secrets is or what is their agenda or what's going on with these drivers. But I wonder if there is, some kind of time context around it, and if there's some kind of an effort on the Microsoft side to do a cleanup in the driver space. I mean, which is not bad. It's not bad to suspend these developers that, nobody knows who they are. They don't have like a real identity. And I think it's actually very good, if you're a driver developer and you want to sign your drivers, send your ID card or whatever, like your passport or like your real world information for some kind of a verification step. If you ask me, you should also like record yourself, send a recording, things like that.
Proof of presence, kind of like some sort of...
Know your customer kind of things. I think that should be a default with software developers. And if you don't want to do that, sure, go ahead, don't do it. But I mean, you're asking me to trust you and run your code on my system, then I'm asking for a bit of, prove that you are legit, at least to Microsoft, not to me personally. And I think that's pretty normal.
Since we're talking about Casper Secrets, we might as well. The last time they came up on this podcast, you speculated that maybe Kaspersky has something that these guys are not pleased about, and it may be in Iran. Do you still believe that? And are you surprised we haven't seen some sort of big nation-statey type report from Kaspersky in the last couple of months?
I mean, I haven't changed my mind. I think it's funny you said like last time Casper Secrets came in this podcast or came up.
Came up, yeah. No. The last time they came up on this
right?
show,
They were not
no.
guests on the show.
No. I don't know what you're talking about. The last time we talked about them on this show.
Again, it's a hunch. It's my suspicion. I don't have any proof, obviously, but
inside information or just hunch?
No, it's just inside information.
Okay.
Just a hunch,
inside
obviously.
Hunch.
No inside information. But like looking at what's happening in the world, did I say that before the war started in Iran?
Yes, right before the war started. Yes. I re-listened to that episode over the weekend, by the way, because there was something I wanted to hear.
It's not difficult to look at what Casper Secrets are, let's say, concerned with. They've always been concerned with things like Venezuela, like, obviously Iran, Cuba. So
Taliban?
There's like a certain range of things they're concerned with, which, again, like in my opinion, if you look around the world, there aren't many people concerned with those specific subjects. And they were silent for a year and a half or almost 2 years, and suddenly decided to come back. I think there's a reason for that comeback, and it can only have to do with one thing, which is that probably Kaspersky has some kind of big report coming up on one of these big things. And looking at what's happening in the world at the moment with the Strait of Hormuz and the war and everything, it has to be connected to that.
Good hunch, Juanito.
Or I'm just, hallucinating. This is human hallucinations.
Anything to add to that at all, Juanito? And if not, close the show with some shout-outs.
I don't have anything to add. I mean, I think the Casper Secrets thing is fascinating, and I'm always paying attention to whatever they put up. I just think it's funny. But then I find things funny, and I don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to add fuel to the suspicion fire, so I'm I can't reach.
I don't know. Here's my thing.
If it's coming, it's coming, If they're going to publish, they're going to publish. What can you do?
Yeah, my thing is, I see, the names of people published there that I know who are just innocent people trying to do a job, that they have a job there, and their names are and then it becomes kind of, oh my God. Poor Yulia. Shout out to Yulia.
Who is Yulia? Which Yulia?
We love Yulia.
What are you talking about?
You didn't.
Never mind.
I didn't see that.
There's the last Shlichkova was mentioned on the last the latest installment. I'm like, come on, man, just someone trying to do their job there. Anyway, Juanito, close the show with some shout outs, please.
Well, shout out to Danny Adamitis and the Lumens Black Lotus Labs folks for doing some amazing work. I also, they coordinated pretty well, right? You see the Microsoft thing, but also NCSC and the Polish CERT, who have also been doing amazing work. I love me some Farm Manager and Hue screenshots like God intended.
Good to hear from the NCSC there as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been consistent, right? Those dudes are always on it, thank Christ. So amazing work, guys. Thank you as always. Then conference-wise, right, Echo Party coming up, Black Hat Asia coming up if folks are going to be out there. We've got a nice group of folks and a pretty interesting talk coming up from our beloved friend Vitaly Kamluk over there. So we're all going to support him over there.
This is in Singapore.
Yeah, that is in Singapore in a couple of weeks. And then Echo Party's coming up in May, as is PivotCon. So we're full on in conference season. That also reminds me, LabsCon call for sponsors is going pretty hard right now. We're starting to put up the first logos. The CFP is about to open. So folks that are in flight and interested, we would love your support. It's a interesting year to be raising funds for conferences, right? Everybody's kind of in an interesting space. So we'd love that support for what's going to be a pretty epic fucking party. The keynotes are starting to already get... Anyways. We'll talk about this soon enough. It's gonna be a good one. So I'm excited. There's things to look forward to, Mythos included. Shout out to Anthropic. You know, we can talk all kinds of shit, but frankly, they are doing amazing work. Claude Code is awesome. Clearly, like, if people complain that your product is just a little bit less good than it was yesterday, well, that means that they are fucking hooked. And I can say that I'm one of those people that is absolutely
it's terrible,
hooked.
though. It's terrible to pay for something and watch it just slowly get degraded over the course of a month, and then and something happens. And it's like this future is so stupid. I'm telling you, because you're going to be reliant on these tools that you have to consistently pay for, and they hold the power to degrade it and make it shitty or not shitty.
I don't like it. I agree with you, but
fuck all of this shit.
That's life on the edge of this shit. But it's been the case. That's not an Anthropic problem.
Yeah, but
that's
why are you fucking cheerleading it?
Because what they're able to do is fucking
the fact that they can fuck around with their customers mean that they're so good. Like, that's...
No. Look, that is a capacity problem, and I'm not cheersing to that. But I'm also acknowledging the reality of having more demand than you have supply. And that is a very interesting place to be in, right? Congratulations to them and to all of our friends that are there working that. And I can see that it's because you have a superior product. Now, am I unhappy when they dumb it down? Yeah, right now I literally created a thing where Codex extra high fast supervises Claude Code. And I let them like run forever so that it can actually finish work, because I don't trust Opus 4.6 right now to do things well. So fine, I have a supervisor on top of you. But like, at the end of the day, capacity problems will pass. And
where is Meta with the open source thing that was promised to us? There's just so many pieces. I'm so angry.
It's like...
No, I mean, don't make me root for the Chinese, right? Like, this is where you're putting us in this. That's what I'm saying, but you're making me root for the Chinese with the way you're treating me.
No, look, this is a very interesting sort of virtuous circle, right? It's a virtuous cycle of sorts where if you have just a little bit of memory, we were losing our shit about how good the OpenAI models were, and then, holy shit, Claude Code got really good, and then, oh my god, never mind, Gemini 3.0 is amazing, and then that got shitty, and then suddenly, like, Opus 4.6 is great. Oh, yeah, how could I forget? But, like, my point is, this is one area where competition is, like, really shining, and it's awesome. Like, every 2 months, the paradigm gets shoved way further out, and the other two feel the need to desperately catch up, and I am very happy with that happening. So I look forward to the next Gemini model, and I look forward to the next OpenAI model, and I look forward to how Anthropic is going to respond to that. It's, in that sense, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. The speed of development is fucking crazy. So I was trying to say, shout out to our friends there. Shout out to our friends at OpenAI as well. I'm sure the competition is hot, and, you know, impress us, man. Time to see some cool shit.
Costin, to shout out.
And by the way, Gemma 4 is pretty good. We don't think
Where's Mistral?
We talked about it.
Dude, no,
Mistral,
Ryan,
I don't know. But
don't
Gemma
skip the
4
Gemma
is good.
4 thing.
No, Gemma 4 is pretty good. Obviously, it's not as fast as some of the other models that came up, especially recently. But in terms of quality, Gemma 4 is good. Yeah.
There's people who are running OpenClaw with Gemma 4 locally inferencing, that's your open source magic right there, right? You can tell me that there's like this multimodal model that's free from Google, and it's good enough to run this, you know, hype beast monstrosity of over permissioning. Good for everybody.
It's a bit slow. It's a bit slow, at least in my setup. But like by slow, I mean in the range of 12 tokens per second, which still is pretty okay. I mean, it's not
I need
200.
to try it on the Spark.
It's not 200, but at 12, still, again, the quality is pretty good. I was surprised how good the quality is. And I already adopted for my local... So what did you say, like Easter shoutouts?
Yes, please, close the show.
Of course, yeah. I mean, happy Easter to all our listeners who celebrated this weekend. I'm going to take a small vacation next week. So I'm going to try to stay away a bit from more. No, we can still record it like we discussed on Saturday if we can.
So you are in.
Yeah. I'll be back on Friday, so I'm gonna try to relax a bit, not think too much about models and Mythos and Fortinet and updates and iOS, and
Good.
hopefully catch
Vacations
up
are
with
good.
you guys on Saturday.
But from my side, I want to give a shout out to Dino Daizovi, who agreed to come on the podcast. I'm gonna do a one-on-one interview with Dino over block on just this explosion of AI and how he thinks around systems engineering. It's a conversation that a lot of people asked me to try to pursue, and he has agreed to come on the podcast. So shout out to Dino. We're recording that next Tuesday. If you guys are listening here and you have any questions for Dino, any like important things you think I should raise, feel free to ping me and reach out there. That's one. The second thing I wanted to flag was Unprompted, this guided conference that happened in San Francisco. There's one talk by Dan Guido that I watched, and I thought it was the most important talk at that conference about not only using AI as a co-pilot, but building your company from scratch around the fact that AI is here, and some real solid recommendations on how it can be done, how they're actually doing it, how they're incentivizing employees to come along for this ride, how much money it's helping even the sales team. These guys were talking about $8 million in improvements. I can't remember the exact numbers. Strongly recommend checking out that Dan Guido keynote. Mark Dowd and the folks in Australia are doing an Unprompted AU.
Yeah.
Which is a sister conference for the Australian audience, so look out for that as well. Anything else to add?
Isn't Mark Dowd part of the Anthropic Mythos project?
Because they're replacing him.
He doesn't need to.
Can you imagine the cyborg chess, the cyborg zero-day version of Mark Dowd plus Mythos together?
Great way to end the show.
And I forgot to mention something really important. It's my
aliens.
duty.
This is going to be about aliens. It's going to be about aliens.
There's a new movie out called S4 on Amazon. Very good movie. Highly recommend it. So if you have time this weekend, go check it out. S4 on Amazon. Good movie.
Go look it up.
Go look it up.
Bye, everyone.
I told you it's about fucking aliens.
It's American aliens.